Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone out this evening. So it is just after 6 o'clock. It is April 21st, and this is for our regularly scheduled city council meeting. So we will begin this meeting. So we'll begin it as we do all our meetings with an invocation offered by Pastor Beth Stockett, and we appreciate you being here of the Crossroads Church. And after that, we'll do a pledge of allegiance to the flag. So if you please, Pastor, if you are there, please come forward. And if everyone would please stand for the prayer, and then remain standing afterwards for the pledge.
And council, we've been teaching our folks a lot about prayer is not only talking to the Lord, it's also hearing from the Lord. So I'm going to pray that way for us this evening. Heavenly Father, will you help us in this moment know how to pray for our city and its people? Lord, we know that you are a God who speaks, and that you are a God who is working things out for your good. And so we pray this evening for your blessing over this entire meeting. We pray, Lord, for common hearts. We pray for unity, not necessarily uniformity, but unity, so that we can move forward as a city and as a people as you would have us this evening, Lord. We are grateful to be your people and to be here together. We love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Thank you so much, Pastor. We appreciate you being here and taking the time for that. So that will move us into our roll call for this evening, and then we'll move into the rest of our agenda. Madam Clerk.
Councilman Doty?
Here.
Councilman Static?
Here.
Councilor Register?
Here.
Councilor Williams?
Here.
Councilor Allgood?
Here.
Councilor Dittenberg?
Here. Very good. Thank you so much. All council members are present and accounted for. Are there any conflict of interest declarations from any members of the council regarding an item on the agenda this evening? Okay, so with that, we do have just one special presentation this evening, and this is an annual update report from Metro Community Services. Always good to see you, and appreciate all that you do for our community on that. So with that, the time is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Mayor, Council, I just want to start out by saying we consider it a privilege to serve the Caldwell's most vulnerable population. That's seniors, disabled, and the economically disadvantaged. Our variety of human services programs promote self-sufficiency, they protect dignity, and they provide independence. As Caldwell continues to grow at a rapid rate, so do our services reflect that growth in every way. Looking back at the last year, we concentrated on meeting that increased demand. So far in 2025, we have continued to place an emphasis on meeting that growing demand and are focusing on three key service areas. First is transportation, second weatherization, and the third Meals on Wheels. I'll just tell you a little bit about transportation first. Ridership continues to increase on our free door-to-door transportation service. Last year there were 5,245 boardings in Caldwell alone. So far this year, we're well over 1,000, which is ahead of the same time last year. We transported folks during Winter Wonderland, and we look forward to doing that again this coming holiday season. While collaborating with Valley Regional Transit to create an effective regional transportation system, our emphasis remains on our passengers that we serve. We're rebranding our vehicles to reflect our new Metro Community Services logo, and we've launched our Welcome Aboard campaign, which is really something that emphasizes the strengths of our Metro transportation service. Personalized attention, quality service, professional image, overall passenger focus, and even a little element of a surprise now and then. And all of our materials and signage will be in both English and Spanish to serve our community. For many of our passengers, our service provides their only option for mobility. Without us, many would be unable to get to medical appointments, grocery or drugstore, senior citizens, or any other essential destination. Funding for our free transportation service remains a critical issue, as Valley Regional Transit's per revenue hour does not cover it. Area agencies per boarding reimbursement does not cover it. And so we have to continue to raise more funds to cover all of our operational costs. Our second area of focus is weatherization. 40 households in Caldwell alone received full-service housing weatherization services last year, and 9 have so far this year. We're working diligently to keep up with the demand, and we've made some great inroads with increasing and hiring adequate staff to complete all of the projects that come our way. The most common services performed include heating system replacements, that's heat pumps and furnaces, water heaters, windows, attic insulation, floor insulation, duct insulation, and HVAC. Our third key area is Meals on Wheels. For several years, Metro delivered meals to homebound seniors in what we refer to as peripheral Caldwell to help out the Caldwell Meals on Wheels program. Last year, we began providing all of those meals. That totaled 35,623 last year alone for the Caldwell program. So far this year, we've already provided over 9,000. The numbers keep going up. Metro overall daily count of meals is 2,000, and that's in Ada and Canyon counties. We deliver to people who are living much longer. We deliver to 104-year-old and 2 101-year-olds that can remain independent, partly because of Meals on Wheels and that daily safety check. And over 20% of our growth is seniors, so you can tell with those two trends, the meal count's only going to continue to increase. A very exciting addition at our Caldwell headquarters in Sky Ranch will provide much needed infrastructure with ample kitchen space to serve that growing Caldwell population. You won't be able to see this very well, but but it's a pretty cool looking addition to our facility in Caldwell. And not only will we have infrastructure to provide more meals, but we're going to have a cafe which will provide a source of sustainable revenue, which is very key. In addition, a side note, at the back of the building, we'll have training space for our weatherization folks, which is in demand right now. In addition to our 3 key areas of emphasis, Metro's other services and programs have an equally positive impact on Caldwell. For example, we provide monthly grocery cards to 34 seniors through our Adopt a Senior program. 20 homebound seniors receive a daily check-in call through our ECHO program. And our Representative Payee program manages finances for over 40 folks who can't do it on their own. We strive to be strategic and innovative on how we best meet the growing need for our services in a growing Caldwell, while at the same time dealing with the realities of funding issues. In September, we will be holding our first annual Race for the Rest of Us. I think I've mentioned this before, but we're really going to have it this year. And you can tell by the graphic, it's intended to be kind of fun and wacky. It's not a real serious event. It's a race only, if you want to call it a race. It's a 0.5K event, and it's intended just to be a lot of fun. But we will start promoting that soon, and there are 2 reasons why we're going to have that. The first one is to generate awareness about Metro Community Services and our programs and services, but secondly, to raise some revenue, which is very important. The vital programs of Metro Community Services continue to enhance the lives of Caldwell's most vulnerable population. As I mentioned before, seniors, disabled, and financially limited. We're extremely grateful to the City of Caldwell for the funding that you have provided over the years. It is critical for us to maintain, for example, our transportation program. Thank you, too, for your ongoing partnership with Metro Community Services. We are proud to be a part of Caldwell, and we look forward to continuing to partner with the city to meet the growing demands of a growing city. Our theme at Metro is going places together. Together with the City of Caldwell's support, we will go places and ensure a bright future for Caldwell's most vulnerable residents. Are there any questions or comments or anything that you would like to know about Metro that I didn't share tonight?
Perfect. I'd like to just say thank you again for what you do and your entire staff. So it's really is phenomenal. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think it's so important that everybody learns about Metro Community Service, that it's not just, I mean, the Meals on Wheels is phenomenal what you do, but you do the weatherproofing and so many other things that you provide to the community. And so the more that I learn about it, the more impressed I am with it. So just really appreciative of that. So any questions or comments? Okay, so yes, thank you
all
again. Really
very much.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
excited for the future.
Thanks.
And we're so glad you're here in Caldwell. So, yep. Okay, that was like I said, that was the only special presentation that we had. So that moves us to audience participation. We do have a few people signed up on this. So just so you're aware, audience participation is reserved for citizens addressing items of concern or providing comments about matters that are not listed on tonight's meeting agenda. So I know there's at least one on here that did mention an item that's on the agenda. So just so you're aware, that is not what this is for. That'll be covered later on during the meeting. So we just want to verify that nothing is on the agenda. So the first one to sign up is Emily Romero, and wanted to speak in regards to special use permit. So just as long as that's not on the agenda this evening. Emily, are you here? Oh, that makes it even easier. Next signed up is Christopher Lane, and Blackburn, very good. So if you could just state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your discussion.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Wagner, City Council members, and staff. My name is Christopher Lane Blackmer. I live at 2415 Robert Avenue here in Caldwell. I'm here tonight to express my concern and disappointment regarding the recent decision to paint red curbs at the intersection of Bryan Avenue and Dewey Lane, as well as Bryan Avenue and Ross Lane. One of those intersections is at City Councilwoman Diana Register's home. Through a public information request.
Just make sure we ask you, appreciate your comments, but just not to single out individual members would be appreciated.
I'll
So,
try not to
okay,
move forward.
thank you.
Thank you. Through a public information request, I received communication and found that the desire for the red curb was initiated by and personally presented by a council member. The desire for a personal curb was not based on any formal traffic study or community feedback. The records also show that legitimate concerns about whether this change was necessary were raised by city employees and others. Despite those concerns, the request was fulfilled. Ultimately, the curbs were directed to be painted red. This action removed public parking and benefited one elected official personally. For years, those curbs served the neighborhood. The sudden change, with no transparency or apparent justification, sends a message that elected officials received special treatment outside of ordinary citizens. That's not just poor optics, it's a breach of public trust. We rely on this council to uphold fairness and integrity and not to allow individual members to use their influence for personal convenience. If city staff can be overruled without reason and public resources can be used for the private benefit of an elected official, what does that send to the rest? What message does that send to the rest for us? I respectfully ask the council to publicly explain how and why this decision was made. Additionally, I urge you to clarify what specific steps will be taken to ensure that all future decisions are made through transparent, accountable processes, free from personal influence and favoritism. The integrity of this council depends on the trust of its constituents, and that trust must be earned through consistent and open governance. I look forward to seeing your response included in a posted future City Council agenda. Thank you for your time and for your service to this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I address
So
that?
we'd actually ask you to please refrain from clapping. We did appreciate it for Metro Community, but in regards to that. Okay, yes.
Just quickly, yes. So what happened is, I do live in the area, and the city had an allowed use for a 3-story apartment building across the street. as well as a very large group of condos. And in that, they had something like 9 parking spaces for 27 units. So what he's referring to are safety issues that my neighbors brought up and brought to me, and I expressed those to the city, as cars were parking right at the corner, making it so that you could not see around them when you turned, and it was causing a safety issue. And then, of course, kids were being picked up at the bus, and they were walking between the cars. So we had many conversations about it, about what we were going to do. The actual painting of the red curbs was the mayor's idea, and he came to me with that after speaking to, I believe, the director of Public Works, and they were trying to figure out what to do, because it was either, could we limit parking on one side of the street because of the safety issues and because of the crowding, the street is not very big, or what was the best option for that? So we had those conversations. The mayor came up with the idea to paint the curbs red, which is in code. So it's, I think it's 25 feet or something like that from the intersection, to make sure that the apartments did not interfere with the residential neighborhood across the street and continue to cause safety concerns for people driving on that street. So yes, I did have the conversations. It was not a favor to me so much. It was just that my neighbors didn't know who else to talk to, and I was able to facilitate the conversations, and thankfully the city was able to come forward and fix the safety concerns for the neighbors, the very, very large apartment building, and all the kids that were running around there.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is, had listed, the description is actually an item that's on the agenda this evening. Garrett Gentry had listed in regards to the Indian Creek project that is later on today. So rather than now, later in the agenda on that. So again, as mentioned, for audience participation, it's not for items that are on the agenda. So appreciate your understanding on that. And that is all for that. So we will move into our consent calendar. I think we have, do we have, no, we don't have an amendment to the consent calendar.
We do not.
So with that, stand for a motion for approval of the consent calendar.
So moved.
And a second? That's a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Sadek for approval of the consent calendar. Any discussion on that motion? With that, voting is then open for that motion. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. And that moves us all the way down to page 3 of 4 of our agenda. So, old business, so this again is old business that was considered a previous hearing, that is brought forth tonight. So old business item number 1 is resolution number 15525, accepting your qualifying bid proposal from Tapani Inc. For the project Indian Creek at Ustick Bridge project. Haley, are you presenting on that?
Mayor, council members, as the mayor said, this resolution is to accept the bid and issue the notice of award for Tapani for $5,275,373 for the Indian Creek at Ustick Bridge project, and I will stand for any questions.
Very good, thank you so much. Any questions from council for Haley? Okay, I do not see any. Councilor Allgood, you don't have any questions, do you, at this time? Or? No. Okay, just want to make sure, so, okay. Okay, thank you very much. So we do have 2 people signed up in favor. Becky, if you want to, so you signed up in favor to testify. Is this the wrong? Actually, I think I received the wrong papers. Okay, I apologize. So Debbie did not provide me the wrong ones. There was no sign-up sheet on this one. And so it is that with the resolution does not require public testimony. I know that there was somebody that did indicate on that, and since you were not able to speak in the public participation, we'll let you go ahead and we'll provide you 3 minutes of comments and then stand for questions. So whoever would like to come forward.
Yes, so.
And if you don't mind, just state your name and address for the record, and then your 3 minutes will start.
Did you say you need my address?
Name and address, please.
Okay, Garrett Gentry, President of Gentry Civil Corp. We're located at 2536 West Success Way in Emmett. My council and I submitted a proposed protest on the Indian Creek project. When it went out to bid time, the instructions were very unclear, throwing out 4 of the 6 bidders. So that, yeah, there was 4 out of 6 bidders that were all thrown out. And we feel Gentry has, we feel Gentry should have gotten the project due to those issues. And, and if we get the project, or if we were to save the city about $265,000, the city and the taxpayers, and either we would like it to be relet out to rebid, and I know that scheduling is a big issue of the city, and that's why they don't want to send it back out to rebid. But knowing what I know about the project, if it were to be relet within, 2 to 3 weeks, it's not a problem to get it done within your guys' time frame, and it would save the taxpayers, $265,000, plus you'll probably get even better bids when it comes back out, because like I said, 4 out of the 6 bidders were all thrown out due to the same issue. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions from council? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you so much. Oh, no, there was no. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, and as mentioned, these do not require testimony, but again, we wanted to provide the gentleman the opportunity to speak, so we don't need to close public testimony on that. And so with that, this resolution is before council for any discussion, questions of Haley or our legal counsel appropriate as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty.
I'll make a statement and then I'll make a motion if that's all right. Couple of things. One is if the paperwork isn't filled out properly, then it can be reflective of the work that may be accomplished. There are certain laws that you must follow. There are certain guidelines that you must follow. Also, if you had any questions, you could have contacted the city staff. Certainly, it's good to save money, but not at the cost of shortcomings of work. And so with that, I'll make a motion to accept the qualifying bid proposal from Tupani in the amount of $5,275,373. Issue the notice of award and process all necessary contract documents for the Indian Creek Bridge project.
So is a motion from Councilor Doty, second from Councilor Dintber. And that is in regards again to the resolution number 15525. And that motion is to approve that resolution accepting that qualifying bid proposal from Tupani Inc. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then the voting will be open at this time. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion does pass unanimously, so that does approve that resolution. And there is, I believe it's a 7-day protest period to file on that, so it sounds like you're aware of that, so, okay, very good. I appreciate you being here this evening. So that will move us into old business item number 2. This is another resolution. This is for authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the Caldwell Public Works, Caldwell Fire, Caldwell Police, in regards to the pit area. Ray Lynn.
So I know you guys have heard this before. The only thing that really changed in this was the language of the total amount. It was above 500,000, so the now proposed amount is 231,000. The way that was found out was we used kind of the estimated assessed value and then split it based off of who's going to receive the property. So with these amounts, the amount going from police and fire will be budgeted in the fiscal 2026 budget, and so no money will be transferred until those have been appropriated.
Okay, any questions for Ray Lynn? Okay, I don't see any. Very good, thank you so much. Okay, and so this, again, is just a resolution, so this is before council for any discussion, questions of staff, or any motions. Counselor Allgood.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we accept this resolution and approve it.
Very good, do we have a second?
Second.
So motion from Counselor Allgood and a second from Counselor Dittenber for approval of the resolution as noted. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then voting is open at this time. All votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously as well. That is all the old business, so that moves us into new business. First item under new business is a vacation request. Bill number 37, ordinance 3689. Who is, oh, is this you, Joe?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, this was actually presented to you, not this one. This is actually presented to you 2 weeks ago, but I frankly forgot to include the ordinance, so this is just for the ordinance.
Oh.
No actual public hearing item for it.
Okay, very good, that makes it pretty easy then, so.
I hope so.
Okay, any questions for Joe at this time? Okay, and then with that, do we have any motions or anybody, any sponsors of this bill and ordinance? Counselor Allgood.
Mr. Mayor, I'll sponsor bill number 37 and ordinance number 3689 and move for its passage by title only. Approve the summary for publication.
Very good. Do we have a second? That's a motion from Counselor Allgood and a second from Counselor Williams. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, voting is open at this time. And there we go. Okay, it's a catch. All votes are cast. The voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. So we're flying right along. I have a feeling that might change here pretty soon with a couple of the items coming up with some discussion. So that moves us into new business item number 2, and this is a quasi-judicial item. So this is for case PUD 24-6, SPP 24-3, and Development Agreement Dev 24-4. So with that, this again is for the Mirandesa Planned Unit Development, which is a mixed-use subdivision with single-family residential and commercial, property located at 1109 West Ustick Road, along with another parcel at 0 Ustick Road. With that, Katie, the time is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 205 South 6th Avenue. Tonight before you is Mirandesa Subdivision, PUD 2406, SPP 2406, and DEV 2404. This was heard by the hearing examiner on February 11th, where it was recommended for approval. The project location is 42.33 acre site located at the southeast corner of Ustick Road and Farmway Road. The site has frontage along Ustick and Farmway. The project site's currently surrounded by a recently approved single-family development to the west, that's Farmway Crossing, commercial and residential to the east, undeveloped land to the south, and residential to the north. There are 4 developments within a 1-mile radius of the subject site that are either actively under construction or have been approved for entitlements. Covington Square is located to the north with 292 single-family homes. Soterra is located to the east, which is a mixed-use development with 60 single-family homes and 15 acres of commercial. Prairie Creek's located to the southeast of the site. It's 119 single-family homes, and Farmway Crossing, which is located just to the west of this site with 115 single-family homes. The applications before you tonight are for a planned unit development with a preliminary plat for the whole site, and the termination of a development agreement for Aspen Falls, which is included as the yellow, and then also several parcels to the south as well. This is a better look at what was Aspen Falls. In 2006, the southern parcel, R32594, was part of an annexation, ANN 13406, of 207.65 acres with the initial zoning of R1 and a development agreement, DA 0704. The project was proposed as a subdivision called Aspen Falls with 674 residential lots and a school site, but has since expired. There was a time extension before the commission in 2009 that was denied, and then it was appealed to City Council, which also was denied, and the application's no longer active. The northern parcel, R3259401, was annexed into the city in 2007, ANN 15307, with the Zone C1 with an associated development agreement, DAO 714, and the comprehensive plan map amendment from low-density residential to commercial. This development agreement doesn't have anything that specifically restricts the parcel, allowing it to remain in place. The applicant's proposing to keep the existing zone of R1 and C1 to remain for this proposal. The proposed R1 zone is to provide areas by zoning procedures in accordance with the comprehensive plan that preserve and enhance single-family residential neighborhoods at single-family standard, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Such zones should have full range of urban services available or projected to be established. And the purpose of the C1 neighborhood commercial zone is to provide areas by zoning procedures in accordance with the comprehensive plan that provide local commercial service needs located at select places at the perimeter of single-family residential neighborhoods and in conjunction with the policies of the comprehensive plan. The proposed development is surrounded by county land to the north and east, low-density residential to the south and northeast, and then the west, and community commercial and low-density residential to the east. Staff finds the neighborhood commercial along the frontage of Eustis an appropriate zoning district with low density to the south, buffering the commercial from other single-family development and ag land. The comp plan designation and developments, community center and neighborhood 2 is consistent with the intent for the comp plan, and the proposed densities are in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The proposed development is mixed use. The applicant's proposing a development consisting of 3.35 acres of commercial, 1.78 acres of townhomes, and 18.11 acres of single-family homes. The housing mix is 145 single-family homes total, with 121 of those being detached and 24 of those being townhomes. And the proposed development project has been analyzed for compliance with city codes and policies, and staff finds the proposed development is in compliance with all zoning and subdivision ordinances. Code section 100307 states the standards are allowed to be modified to better suit the project and the site. The applicant's proposing the following allowed deviations: a height increase to 35 feet within the R1 zone, 5-foot internal side setback and minimum lot size of 4,932 square feet for single-family detached lots, 0-foot internal side setback, minimum lot size of 3,190 square feet and 29-foot frontage for townhome lots, and then the commercial use street side setback reduced to 15 feet. The applicant's also utilizing the flexibility in the code, allowing the development 30%, especially in non-permitted uses. This development's proposing 28.6% non-permitted uses within underlying zones to allow the commercial to be along the intersection. The development agreement termination that's being proposed is supported by city staff, as each current property owner within the boundary of Aspen Falls Development Agreement was notified of the termination request. They provided the termination language and signature pages to sign if they wanted to show support for the termination, and several of the landowners within the DA area sent signature pages to the city in support of the termination. The proposed development will have adequate site access, and all utilities are available or will be available as outlined in the engineering staff report. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only agencies that had concerns were Highway District Number 4 had comments to the council to consider, and Boise Project Board of Control did request the Pioneer Lateral be maintained and that they involved in any decisions impacting the easement, and this is not a concern at this time. And we received 2 public comments, both from Patty Soren about the neighborhood meeting place and time, making it difficult to attend. On February 11th, the hearing examiner recommended approval for the preliminary plat and the planned unit development. Staff recommends that if the council approves the request, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. And I stand for any questions.
I do. Mr. Mayor, thank you. I noticed that there were 7 different PUD requests for flexibility in the codes. Can you expand on why 7 different items within that needed to be flexed, so to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. So as you can see on this photo, the portion that's in green is the area that's zoned C1. And so some of these are falling under the townhomes are on that portion, where the bigger lots over to the west are the commercial portions. So they're having to flex some of the restrictions for that area specifically. And then the townhomes are the ones up in pink on the eastern corner that are in the commercial zoned area. So some of those are having to be requested for some waivers that wouldn't necessarily be met typically.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions at this time? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just one last question.
Yeah.
Do we know why it was rejected to begin with?
Mayor and Councilor, so this project specifically is brand new to this area. It was Aspen Falls, which was
I see that, I was just wondering
the
what the reason
larger.
was.
So based on what I read through the minutes was it no longer fit, they didn't believe it fit the area. And that development would not be in conformance with our comp plan currently today either.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, so Becky, now you won't look surprised when I call you to come forward and testify. So we'll begin with those in favor. So Becky, if you could just state your name and address for the record, and then you will have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. Becky Izagiri. My address is 13486 West Meadowy Drive, Eagle, Idaho, 83713. Wait for my, thank you. All right, so good afternoon. Here to present applications for preliminary plat with the PUD for Mirandesa subdivision. The project consists of 2 parcels which have been annexed into the city of Caldwell since 2006. Parcel A has a zoning designation of R1, parcel B having a zoning designation of C1 neighborhood commercial. So Mirandesa is a mixed-use development on 42.39 acres. This development will consist of 8 commercial lots, 24 individually platted for-sale townhomes, 48 detached patio homes, and 73 single-family lots ranging in a couple different sizes. The comprehensive plan and future land use map designate this area as business and low-density residential, allowing a mix of 6 units per acre with a PUD. Mirandesa will abide by the business and low-density designations and is proposing a gross density of only 3.42 dwelling units per acre, which is half the allowed max of the PUD. I now want to discuss the nuts and bolts of the project. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to move the commercial to the hard corner of Farmway and Ustick, and we're proposing 8 commercial lots with 144 parking stalls, 2 EV stalls, and 24 bike parking stalls. This area will take access off the proposed Dorman Ave, then to Ustick. These commercial lots will not have direct access onto Ustick or Farmway. On the other side of the commercial, we're proposing 24 individually platted for-sale duplex townhome lots, ranging from 3,163 square feet to 4,096 square feet. These townhomes will have a 2-car garage and driveway. We're also offering a 6-stall parking lot to accommodate guest parking there. So just south of the commercial and townhomes, we are proposing 48 detached patio homes with lots ranging from 4,932 square feet to 6,690 square feet. These homes will also have a standard 2-car garage and driveway. Then just south of the patio homes, the highlighted in red, will have 54 single-family homes with lot sizes of 6,736 square feet to 7,726 square feet. And lastly, as we move away from Farmway and Ustick intersection, we are proposing 19 single-family homes with lots ranging from 7,864 square feet to 8,851 square feet. These homes will also have a standard 2-car garage and driveway. So Mirandesa will be fully developed in 6 phases with an estimated 12-year build-out. The total amount of open space for this project is 7.88 acres or 18.6% usable open space per code. And the per code is 4.66 acres or 10.61%. Additionally, there's a 41-foot irrigation easement on the east side of the property that provides a large buffer between our project and the neighbors to the east. We're also going to try and retain the existing trees in the irrigation easement. The landscaping for this development will feature a mix of trees, shrubs, and various other plant materials to create a welcoming environment. Residents will enjoy a wide range of amenities that include an outdoor fitness area, playgrounds, picnic areas with barbecues. Additionally, the development will include a 10-foot pathway along Usick and Farmway, and then we'll have 5-foot micro paths on the interior. This development plans to construct 11 new local roads. Usick will have a right in, right out with left only. Farmway will be right in, right out, and all local streets will have curb gutter and an attached sidewalk. Usick and Farmway will have a 10-foot detached sidewalk and a 25-foot landscape buffer. This development will connect to a 12-inch water main in Usick and a 16-inch main in Farmway. For sewer, we'll connect to a 12-inch sewer main in Usick and a 36-inch main in Farmway. We plan on constructing a pressurized pump station using the water from the Pioneer Lateral. And all stormwater will be retained on site. So as I wrap up tonight, I just want to request that we have an open dialogue about this project before we close public testimony. I would love to hear your feedback and address any concerns you guys might have. Thanks. We'll stand for
Thank you so
questions.
much, Becky. Appreciate that. Questions? Councilor Doty.
Just one, was it discussed, what phase that if approved, that your open land would be and all your amenities within that? Lately, we've been putting what phase that will occur, so it doesn't come
Understood.
6 to 8, 10 years from now, that some of the first folks in there can use those amenities. Was that covered in this particular project?
So yeah, that's looking like, I'd have to get my plat. Can I run up and get my plat?
What was that?
Can I run back and get my plat?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Staff can remember too.
Yeah.
Either way.
Or Katie, do you have that?
Mayor and
answer?
council, on here it shows phase 4
Yeah,
for the large portion of open space.
perfect.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Yeah, Becky, you've requested a 35-foot height variance. What portion of this project is going to qualify for that 35-foot height variance?
Yeah, so the 35-foot height variance, it's really hard to build a quality style two-story home with just 25 feet. Most homes that you build these days are over 25 feet. Those that aren't don't really have the architectural designs that kind of differentiate the between like the standard cookie cutter houses and then the higher end homes. The homes that we tend to build, these are going to be higher end homes. So the roof line won't necessarily be 35 feet, but the architectural elements might be. To get to your question, so the townhomes would likely be the stuff at the top on the east side, and then maybe some of the two-story homes.
Would that be displayed in some of the photos that were shown of the houses, maybe a little better?
Yeah,
Go
so
into
those are exactly. Those are our housing. So these are going to be our single-family lots that we're proposing. And so they're your typical two-story homes there. Like I said, the architectural elements will sometimes add that additional height. And some more single-family. And then there are our townhome lots right there. So like I said, you can kind of see where the roof lines are kind of jutted out that way a little bit. They're just a little bit more stylish of a home.
Yeah, follow up?
So I just want to be specific. I understand the townhomes would be taller. Are you saying also individual family homes would be over the 25 feet scattered out throughout this project?
I can bring up our builder, and he can kind of discuss that a little bit more, if that works for you, on the specifics.
So
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
probably just go through questions with
Yep.
you, and then he can come
Yeah.
forward afterwards
Yep,
and
perfect.
touch on anything that's not. Any other questions for Becky this time? I thought I might have had one, but I think you probably answered it. So maybe just within, so what all amenities, I know I see the open space, is there any plan for any, within the park, any additional amenities that'll be located inside of those areas, or?
Yeah, so we're planning an outdoor fitness area, so one of those kind of outdoor fitness gyms, like those circuit gyms, and then we're also planning barbecue with little picnic areas, and then we are then, obviously gonna have the pathways throughout the development. Let me see if, what's that landscape plan? So you can kind of see, I guess it's not really depicted in there as well. But you can kind of see in that southwest area, that's kind of where we plan on having the amenities for that. We'll have it in, like, there's that pinkish area is gonna be where the playground is. Yep,
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, appreciate it.
thanks.
So I'm guessing Dean is the builder, so it sounds like he gets to come up even though he said no. So Dean is signed up in favor. But anyway, do you mind just name and address, and then maybe just
Dean,
touch on it?
Dean Waite, 2154 Timber Trail, that's in Cuna, Idaho. And I am in favor of this project. To answer your question, yes, we would think that those 35-foot, or the 35-foot exception would be mixed throughout the subdivision. And the new R1 code does allow for 35 feet. We are just I think because our application came in with the old code, we're asking for that exception so that we can be brought up to the current standard of R1. R1 does allow for 35 feet in your new code, but we're being approved under the old code.
Okay, very good. Any follow-up on that, or? Okay, very good. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, so that moves us into, there's nobody signed up in neutral. So we do have a few people signed up in opposition. So first is Conrad Wood. So if you'd please come forward and then state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes for your testimony, and then stand for questions after that.
Conrad Wood, 705 Kaiser Lane. I'm here representing the Orchard Heights subdivision, which is directly east of where this is going. Could I get the plot map put back up there, please?
Once we get to it, we'll go ahead and start your time over
Okay.
right there. So tell us which one works best.
Let's
that
go
work?
with theirs, maybe for the subject property. So this right here next to the.
And then, so we do need you on the microphone, and then do you mind resetting that 3 minutes?
Sorry.
So, okay.
If you can see directly east of the subject property, all those 1.5 acre lots, that's what I'm representing. So one of my concerns is we have a road. If you want to go to the next slide. Okay, the road. Sorry, go back one.
Yeah, right there.
This road here in the middle, I can't see the name. It actually, yes, correctly. That actually butts into one of our Orchard Heights roads, which is a private road. We're kind of interested in why exactly that's set up like that. That's one of our concerns, is that our roads are not going to be taken. The Corey Barton subdivision that is actually to the bottom of this division, they have an inlet road into the Corey Barton division. That is coming into Savageview, which is another one of our roads. And we're going to talk to you guys later on about those things. So what we would like to propose is that road that really goes into nothing except for our road, go ahead and take that out of the plat. It can be green space, it could be another unit, something to that effect. But unless the city is looking to take our roads from us, other builders shouldn't be trying to funnel things. And you may not get cars, but what you will get is all kinds of public access with bikes, quads. Right now we have quads, bikes, horses, all kinds of things coming down there. Other things is I was wondering about, that's obviously on the traffic study. So are they giving them traffic egress and outgress through this road that goes into the Corey Barton subdivision? I have some questions about that. Let's see, the 35-foot high variance, we're worried about, they're gonna put it on the outsides, which will border our pieces of property. We're worried about sunlight because we do have light agricultural in our areas. That's why we have acre plus lots. So we're definitely worried about that. We would like them not to put any 2 stories along that area. We're also asking the same out of Corey Barton so that we don't have shade and sun, because that is directly in the way that the sun runs. We also want to, trying to be fast here. Also the townhomes. You guys just denied another subdivision right up the road with townhomes. 1, due to the density, but 2, due to the commercial aspect that was being lost. I don't exactly remember what the name of it was, but it was right up the road where they had asked for a variance. We're also asking that the townhomes be taken out. They're asking for multiple variances on these things, or exclusions, or whatever they're calling them. So we would like to see the townhomes disappeared and the commercial brought into that so that we don't lose precious commercial. There is not a lot of commercial, especially with as much density as coming on here and is being planned on the other side. So
Perfect. So before we get into questions from council, I think we're gonna put Haley on the spot to try to answer a couple of your questions about the roads and to see
Okay.
if that answers any of those. So do you mind just touching on that stub street to the, sounds like the one to the east and then the one to the south?
Yes, Mayor and council members, and I would like to just ask for some clarification so I know which road I'm looking at. Are you referring to Angus Ranch Street, where it is connecting to a dirt road, or are you referring to the potential where it would connect to Co Lane?
it's Keogh.
Keogh, I'm sorry.
And there is a dirt road there. That road is a ditch rider right of way, but that will be going away under your guys' set plans. And what we are worried about is I know that possibly not traffic will be allowed to go through there for whatever you do, but you will not be able to stop people, dogs, yada, 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 where if you did have a lot there and it wasn't a road, obviously there would be a complete area, you know, other than the green area. It would keep people, quads, bikes, mostly bikes, you know, foot traffic, horses, all that kind of stuff.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. I wanted to make sure you weren't referring to the Ditch Riders Road. So,
Yes.
so I am seeing that there is a parcel that would be in between this subdivision and to where the edge of pavement is for Keogh Road. So, so there would be a disconnect between the subdivision and the existing private
Are you talking
lane.
about that sliver non-buildable parcel that's there? That's actually in the ditch. It's actually in a right of way. So it's actually the same as the road.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing it on our web map that it is owned by Youth Stick Church of the Nazarene.
It is, but it's in a right of way area, so it's a non-buildable. It's just not road surfaced, but it's a non-buildable because there's a canyon right of way for ditch or for irrigation.
Okay. Okay, yes, regardless of the ownership, I guess I'm still seeing that there's a disconnect in where the pavement would be because of that property. However, I would be happy to look at it a little bit more closely with you, and I would say it would, I am not sure, Katie, if it was a planning requirement to have the stub street. It wasn't an engineering requirement to stub Angus Street to the east. We typically like to see that with development, but certainly if it's going to stub to a private road, it's not any requirement by the engineering department to have that stub at that location.
Okay. Katie, was that a requirement from planning and zoning?
Mayor and councilors, no, it was not.
Okay, we could probably have the applicant touch on that, when they come back up for the rebuttal afterwards. And then the one to the south, I'm guessing that's just standard connecting to the subdivision that's been approved to the south of this, is that correct?
Because to the south is an undeveloped parcel, we typically like to see that connectivity. This wasn't an engineering requirement. Katie's looking through her staff report at the moment to see if it was stubbing to a future development.
So my question and concern on that one was that it goes into a subdivision that's being proposed, but that proposed subdivision has 2 outlets, not 1 but 2, on our private Savageview Road. So that's my concern, is if that was put in with the traffic study that was done for being an egress, and obviously we're gonna have to come back and talk about the other subdivision, but these all go together. Unfortunately, I can't show you the other subdivision.
Yeah, okay, very good, thank you so much. So, hold on, is there any questions from council? Okay, very good, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
appreciate it. There's 2 other people that signed up in opposition but indicated to not testify. Carol, I believe Julius, and then Travis Johnson. Is that correct, to not testify but in opposition? Correct, okay, thank you so much. Okay, so that is all those in opposition, so that moves us back to the applicant for, or were you wanting to?
I would like to, I got here a little bit late, but I would like to talk about.
Okay, do you mind coming forward? Yeah, just please come forward, and we'll just have you first, if you don't mind, just put your name
Okay.
on this paper. That way we make sure we get it. So just your name and address. That's just if you want to speak, that's fine, yeah, perfect. Okay, so if you could just come to the podium, and then if you could state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes as well for
Okay.
your testimony.
So I'm John Tilford. I live on 5220 Bear Lane. So this proposed part is right directly behind my house. There's 42 acres right there. And that puts those houses right behind my well house. I mean, I'm tight right there. This place has been in a lot of problems. It's been to court 4 times on who owns my land. And we're finally getting that worked out. And now you're wanting to put that subdivision and all them 2-story houses and all that stuff around there. It also, if you're sitting in my driveway and you Google it, it shows a road going through my pasture with a cul-de-sac. And we need to get this figured out, and I don't want any houses that, we got 1.5 acres. Why do we have to build a subdivision that has all these rats all piled up in a pile? Spread them out. We don't need that many people there. And I complained about the 120 houses down Bear Lane, and you guys didn't want to change that, and the 500 houses behind that on Farm Way. Now you're wanting to put another 50, 60 houses right behind my house. And I don't know why you guys show a road going through my field and a cul-de-sac. And I'm not gonna allow it at all. The county come down the road, they tore up the road, tore my trees out, and because they was almost on the border, and they had to reimburse me for that, but you guys are just taking. You take it on the front, you take it on the back, you take it on the sides, and it seems like we come into these meetings and we tell you guys we don't want to do this, or it's too much, and you guys don't listen. And I thought you were public servants. And maybe it's time that we start trying to figure out how to vote people off. If you guys, I don't know why we just have to keep just jamming it down everybody's throat if they don't want it. So, you're not putting a road through my place, I can guarantee you that. So, I don't know how you guys are gonna do that, but that ain't gonna happen.
Very good. So I think we could probably answer some of those questions. First of all, do you mind pulling up the map that showed the surrounding area. So I just want to verify kind of where you're at. So I think this property is north, so could you go to the one that shows like the plat map? Yeah, like right there. So on this, I know it's a little difficult to see, but if I'm not mistaken, looking at the data that we have, looks like you're at Pat Lane and Bear Lane, is that correct?
On Bear Lane, yeah, Bear and Pat.
So if I'm not mistaken, I think this is your property right here. I think
Yeah.
that's Pat Lane there on that. And then, so this development that we're looking at is right here on that.
Okay, but
The one
part
that
of
you had
this-
talked about, the one that was mentioned earlier, Aspen Falls, it encompassed this entire area, which was next to you. However, the piece that's being considered tonight is just this where it shows A and
But
B.
it showed it on the thing, there's a sign sitting right at the corner of my property, says this was all up for debate tonight.
And I'm guessing that's simply, actually, I'll let you answer that.
Mayor and Counselor, yes, thank you. The applicant was required to post the site around all of the development that's proposed tonight up in the corner, and then also all of what was Aspen Falls, strictly for the development agreement termination. So that's the only reason that it was
So that's
posted.
not even right behind my house tonight.
No,
That'll
that's
be
just for
later.
that's just for the development agreement termination. So for Aspen Falls that was approved and had entitlements in 2006, that termination of the development agreement is what those signs were posted for. So essentially to get rid of any approvals and allowances for that development to be done in that area.
Okay, all right.
So with that termination, that means for that to redevelop where he is at, has to come back for a new hearing. Is
Mayor,
that
that's correct.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, very good. Yes, no, did you have a?
No, that's all.
Okay, perfect, excellent. We appreciate you taking the time to come down, and we apologize for that confusion. Okay, so with that, Becky, if you'll please come forward, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your rebuttal testimony, then to stand for questions.
All right. So just answer kind of Conrad's questions here. We are happy to remove that stub. If the city doesn't want the stub, we can definitely remove that. I don't know if we can put a condition or whatnot. We'd be happy to remove that. We just thought it'd be nice to add some connectivity in for the future. As far as the buffer goes, the request for single-story homes on that easterly prop side, there is already a 41-foot irrigation easement there. That's quite significant. I don't know if we can bring up my presentation again. And then on that easterly boundary, there are mature trees within that easement that add additional buffer. So there's quite a bit of space right there, and you can kind of see. You can kind of see right down there on the bottom. There are some mature trees along that irrigation easement, and we are required to stay out of those easements. We're not developing in those easements, obviously. Stand for questions.
Okay, excellent. Questions from council?
I just have one
Yes,
question.
Council Register.
Just to confirm, you have 121 lots, but they're duplexes, right? Each one of them? That's what it looks like here.
So let me kind of go back here. So these, we'll just kind of go back. So we're going to have 24 residential duplexes, and those will be for sale, individually platted. And then kind of to the south of that, we're going to have patio homes. So those are going to be single-family detached homes, and for sale. And then just south of that, we're going to have the traditional single-family lots with the 2-car garage and driveway. And then just south of that, we're going to have another single-family home product. Yep.
Mayor,
Yes, Rob.
can I ask a question, Becky? So when you said they're duplexes, are they actually duplexes, 2 units on a single plus, or are they townhomes connected by a common wall?
They're connected by a common wall.
Okay, so they're single-family townhomes. They're not
Townhomes, yes.
duplexes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I saw the line going through there.
Yes.
I was wondering that same thing as well. So, okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you for that question. Any questions, other questions from council? Councilor Allgood?
Yeah, I've been trying to look for it. When I was reading this packet earlier, I saw some comment regarding the traffic impact study. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to look for it now, but there's 2,000 pages here, so I'm having a hard time finding it. Something in the traffic impact study discussed that the intersections surrounding this neighborhood, and I believe it was to the east, would be at failure by 2034. Can you address that?
Yeah, I'm actually going to have our engineer come up here and address that.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't mind.
Okay, any other questions for Becky
questions?
before I have him just touch on that one point? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so just state your name and address, and then if you could just touch on that one point that was
Yeah,
brought
John-
up regarding the traffic study.
John Carpenter, 332 North Broadmoor. There, obviously with city growth, there's going to be some intersections that need improvements. This project is doing over $4,000 per lot for future improvements. In the next 10 years, there's going to be improvements there. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, anything more specific, Councilor Allgood, or?
Yeah. Can you specify which intersections were the biggest concern? Again, I tried to pull it up, but there's so many pages. Do you remember off the top of your head?
I know 10th and Ustick was the biggest one.
10th and Ustick was the
Correct.
biggest one?
Yep.
Okay.
And obviously, you've seen a lot of projects coming in that area. There's going to be improvement. I know there's planned improvements at that intersection.
Okay. And I know there is a roundabout scheduled for Farmway Ustick.
Yep,
Well, was that taken into consideration when the traffic study was done?
it was.
It was.
So the roundabout's going in 2026. There's another roundabout down at Homedale and Farmway. I think that's going in 2027. Haley can correct me if I'm wrong there. There's quite a few improvements in the area.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and maybe just to follow up, John, on the 10th and Ustick. So that's where the neighborhood Walmart, the Walgreens is at. So that's that failure is under today's conditions, I'm guessing, and not any improvements that will be happening at that intersection in the future. Would that
Correct.
be correct?
Yeah, and with the traffic impact studies, I don't know if everybody knows, but there's projects that are put on top of our current, what we have today, plus our project, plus other projects that are coming in the future, and then we just look at projected growth. So that's with growth in the area. But yeah, you're correct. It's at that intersection at 10th and Ustick.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions from staff for the applicant, the developer, before we close public testimony? Okay, then with that, I stand for a motion to close public testimony. It's a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Stoddard. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes. So public testimony is closed on this item. So that moves it into deliberation from council. Staff is always available for questions as well, and any motions as well are appropriate. Councilor Doty.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion minus the, am I saying this right, Andrus Ranch Road stub? Is that where the stub that we're
I
gonna remove?
believe it was Angus Ranch.
Angus, sorry, I couldn't read my own writing, I was writing too quickly. Angus. Okay, I'll try and get that right. Based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Caldwell City Council hereby orders that case number PUD 2406, SPP 2403, DV 2404, a request by Chad and Melinda McDaniel for development agreement modification to the original Aspen Falls Development Agreement is approved with the conditions of approval as outlined within the staff report, in addition, minus the stub road at Angus Ranch.
Very good. Okay, so that is a motion for approval of the request with the additional conditions that the stub road be eliminated to the east for Angus Ranch Road. Is there a second to that motion? So it's a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Dintber. Again, this is for approval of the request as noted with that one additional condition. Discussion on that motion. Okay, I don't see any discussion, so with that, voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. Stand for a motion to close this public hearing, Adam. In a second. Motion from Counselor Static and a second from Counselor Doty. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes as well. That now moves us into action item number 3. Thank you again for everyone that came in regards to that item, and appreciate your time and being here and for your testimonies. Action item number 3 is a legislative matter. This is for the zoning ordinance amendment 25-1. And this, we will turn it over to you after those. Okay. Very good. So depending on time, we may take a break in between if we need to, depending on how long it all goes. What's that? Actually, we're going to do one right now. So let's
Sounds
do a
good.
5-minute quick break and we'll be
Understood.
back for that. So. Okay. we're gonna go ahead and get started again. So again, we are in new business, action item number 3. This is for ZOA 25-1. So I know this has been a long time in the coming, workshops, different things of that nature. So
Yes, sir.
excited to be here to begin this process and see where it goes. So with that,
Thank you.
Joe, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thanks for having us tonight and hearing us. Want to just start by thank you guys for your involvement. You guys have called, emailed, yelled. No, just kidding. Had questions, and we appreciate that. We do. We want the inner dialogue, so appreciate it. So my name is Joseph Dodson, Principal Planner here at the City of Caldwell. This is ZOA 25-01 for our ordinance text amendments, technically our second package of multiple that we've brought before you in the last year or so. And of course, this won't work when I want it. I'm trying to do the slide. There we go. So, just a quick highlight of what these ordinance text amendments are. There's a lot of shuffling around. That's probably the biggest component, is moving things from one section to another, just to make things hopefully more understandable, easier to find, easier to understand for staff, council, and developers and residents. This is just an overview. I won't read that all to you, but biggest thing is moving different sections into their individual for like residential, commercial, industrial, etc. Background for the timeline for this, again, we started over a year ago with an initial city council workshop. We also had a stakeholder meeting later that year, about a year ago now. Had some good feedback from builders, engineers, developers, architects, things like that. Then we had another council workshop in November of last year, and then we formally submitted and did our P&Z commission workshop in February. Then we did our open house to the public in March, and then we had our workshop with you guys a couple weeks ago. And again, appreciate the feedback that we've received from everybody, including the public comment, and I'll touch on that as well. So since the workshop, which was 2 Mondays ago, we made some changes that we would say are not substantial, but still amendments to the code technically. So we had some minor typographical errors, some things that we just misspelled words or missed period here or there, et cetera, things like that. And then also with the bonus density program, we added clarifying text for design criteria, meaning that you do not get out of certain design criteria simply by doing the density bonus. And then also requiring that if you have deed restricted affordable housing, whether that's multifamily or single family, you will have to do that SUP at council level. So that's just another layer of regulation and a review, really, by council. As far as public hearing notifications for this, we have complied with all of our legislative requirements, our state statutes, had our public agency notification January, ad published in February, then we had our P&Z hearing in March, legal ad published for tonight's meeting on the 4th, and here we are for the council meeting tonight. Public agency comments, we only received one public comment from an agency, that was City of Nampa, and they had no objections or comments. As far as other public agencies, I will say, Robin and I have had calls from other jurisdictions wanting to understand what we're proposing, why we're proposing it, to then emulate on their end. So there's been some good feedback in that way for us as well. As far as public comments, these are probably more late comments. Some of them are mixed of late and some of them are not, but just want to go through them. Kim Rice was opposed to the density bonus program because they do not want to see the mixed housing in Caldwell. Laura Shannon, same thing, does not want the mixed income philosophy within the City of Caldwell. Peggy Waterman opposed any codes relating to the density bonus program as well. Brighton has submitted probably a couple different levels of feedback to us. We actually did change some draft language that they had, or that they proposed based upon their feedback. Some of that was signage, some of that was clarification of certain language in the landscaping code, things like that. Most of those changes occurred even before the workshop, but we wanted to just touch on that we've received that and made some changes there. They did actually ask for a request to change the minimum lot size from R1 down to 6,000, and we did not make that change. Caleb Leclerc from JUB submitted feedback and suggestions for garage front setbacks and local road sections. There was a request that he was hoping there'd be an opportunity for future roadway width reductions, like actual asphalt reductions, as well as reducing the front setback that we've proposed. I've clarified a few times with him, and he has stated, quote unquote, I believe, all good, Joe, something to that effect in the email. So he understood what some of the changes were and why, and he seemed to be okay after that. For John, I'm not even going to try your last name, sir. He's one of our regular customers at the counter. We know each other pretty well at this point. He submitted comments expressing concerns within the traditional neighborhood zone, the actual zoning district, and the elimination of a lot of automotive-oriented uses in there because it's now a part of a broader, I guess, urban neighborhood, but also downtown area that we're trying to redevelop. And he requests that they still allow for those small-scale auto sales, which is proposed to not be permitted in the new code. As far as specific late exhibits, Amanda McNutt, again from Brighton, did submit concerns about including multifamily development code standards be applicable to duplexes. We responded to her, told her the reasoning behind those things, and that was that. We proposed that to ensure that we have, again, a certain level of minimum standards, period, for residential. Monty Cooper, I believe he's here tonight. I'm not sure if he's wanting to testify, but they had initial concerns about their parcels along U6 south of the airport and the C3 zone, some of the uses changing there, specifically removal of an RV storage or RV dealership, sales, repair, things like that. Planning staff met with him. I hope that we've helped him through most of his concerns. The understanding is that there's other opportunities to get what it is that they're wanting to do, whether it be through a rezone or some other avenue. So we've worked with him as well and tried to quell some of those fears. And then also William Stanley, again, opposed to the density bonus because he feels the community doesn't need it overall. Also, Sabrina Minchell with Hayden Homes submitted some recommendations. As you can see, not to require 50% within the first 2 phases of development. We kept that in the code based upon feedback from council. I mean, you even had a question about that with the last project. I do want to note that we've also, in previous amendments, updated the landscape bonding project, or I should say process, which we did not previously have. I believe we discussed this at the workshop a couple weeks ago, or it might have been another hearing at this point. But we used to only have landscape deferrals, which had no teeth. People could just punt the landscaping to the future, and then we never had any funds or teeth to actually require it. Now the landscape bonding that's in place, yes, they can punt, but they have to propose and provide a bond or a cashier's check of 150% of those improvements to us. So if they wanted to do a later addition of the open space or something like that, or amenities, we still have the funds to do it if they happen to go bankrupt or they don't want to do it, etc. So there's always now going to be an avenue for us to get that open space and to get those amenities that we desired and approved the first time. She also recommended that we see less extensive details within the landscape code regarding number of trees, shrubs, landscape coverage, things like that. Really, with all development code, you need to have some minimum threshold. There are avenues to do alternative methods of compliance, which is already in the code, and so developers, for a relatively very nominal fee, propose an alternative to us, and the director level gets to review those and make the determination of what those are. So it's already in code. That is how we handle those case by case, but there does need to be a certain minimum level of requirements. And then, similar to other home builders, they request that the front yard setback to the garage is be 20 feet, which is what current code is, but we're proposing to increase that. And again, that is to help eliminate some of the concerns that we've lived and seen of people parking over the sidewalk based upon where we had measured things from before. So we just wanted to make sure that we alleviate some of that concern. So we did not make that code change either. Also, Mr. Bailey from Concord Group submitted feedback on the code changes, concerned with the increased tree and shrub planting due to maintenance costs. He proposed to have a reduction in the planter beds, but an increase in the grass. We went the opposite direction to help reduce some of the water requirements, as has been discussed multiple times. He also had concern for they wanted the front yard setback in R3 to be reduced. In one hand, it was the garage setback is proposed to increase, as I've noted, for the reasons. But then the living area setback was technically reduced, and that's for some of the other housing types that are in R3 that aren't single family. We typically won't see a lot of single family detached within R3, which is the purpose of a different zoning district. That would be more for your triplexes or fourplexes that are on individual lots. and you have the living area. If you don't have a garage, then it's all just living area, and that setback was reduced from current code. But that's typical of any other multiplex project that we currently have, so it would not look or feel any different. Already noted the front setback for the garage there, and then they would propose a 3-foot side yard within the R3 zone. Other jurisdictions have this, and it does comply with fire code. We didn't make that change, but council is, if you guys want to make that change, you're more than welcome to. Other jurisdictions do that, and it can comply with building and fire code. They just have to change the construction of those adjoining walls or close walls. Now, with those, I guess if you guys want to ask any questions immediately, I'll take those now. Otherwise, we'll get into some of those comments or the actual changes.
Questions, Councilor Doty?
One really quickly.
Yes, sir.
It happens to be the very last one on the 3-foot setback versus what ours is. What is the benefit of only having the 3-foot setback? Did he give a reason for
Yes,
only having?
we actually met with Mr. Bailey on this, Councilor Doty, and it just provides more opportunity for another, I guess, when you have that additional 2 feet reduction, you have an opportunity to do a little bit different housing type. It is typically, you would say, denser, but you get more opportunity to do traditional patio homes that you see in historic neighborhoods, or just in general alley-loaded homes, things like that. Other than that, I have not heard entirely too much justification. It's just another avenue to have a diversity of housing there and housing options, however you want to call that.
Typically on those two, what they'll do is, as part of their design element, the reason they ask for that is they'll put the house literally on the property line. And so you get 6-foot separation, but you have a house on the property line here, so it's like a 0, and then it'd be like a 6-foot, or they would do it through easements, so you do get a 6-foot between the houses.
Yep.
But it just allows them just greater opportunities to develop it in a manner similar to other communities.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Joe at this time? Okay.
Okay, moving on. So Article 1, staying in its place, but we did clean up language to, make sure it's more clear, reallocated some other sections within the code, both into this section and out of this section, and including more clearly defining the current process. And it's any process that we have, this would be the administrative section. We also amended the existing definitions, which is probably the bulk of this entire article, is the definitions. And as you'll see, there's a number of new ones, but also changes to existing ones. And that's just to better explain code provisions, uses, etc. Article 2, which is now regulations applicable to all zoning districts. We cleaned up, again, language throughout. We relocated sections to other areas. We also relocated a lot of sections into this, like landscaping, because it's applicable regardless of the zoning district. So the sign code, landscaping, off-street parking are highlights there. We'll get into those more specifically, starting with the sign code. So as discussed before, we went through, made these content neutral per zoning case law so that we don't get sued for regulating things we should not be regulating that have already been predetermined within the court of law. Part of that is also having billboards only permitted within 500 feet of the interstate. Freestanding pole signs would not be permitted. They would now be considered similar to a billboard. And then standalone reader boards being not permitted. So those signs that you see for one business having an electronic reader board would no longer be permitted. Any questions on sign code before I move on? Okay. Landscaping. Included a new, I guess you could say, trigger point to help staff determine when a project is going to have to apply and be adhered to the new standards, which would be a 25% addition or 1,000 square foot addition. We also said for those smaller projects that are less than 2 acres that you do not need a landscape architect. Again, that's just to help, frankly, the little guy trying to get a project done or a little business going, that they don't need to pay an additional thousands of dollars to have a landscape architect stamp their plans. We can see that you have 3 trees and we can move on. 75% of trees being required and shrubs to be required as low water or moderate water is proposed in the new code, again, to help with the water usage. That's something we would check at the time of plant submittal, make sure that those are compliant. We also changed the requirement, the current requirement of 70% minimum grass, changed that to 20% minimum and 50% maximum for the same reasonings. The other remaining 50% would be planter beds, shrubs, other vegetative ground cover, decorative walls, could be a number of things, just not sod. Also, again, requiring open space to be constructed within the first two phases for the reasons we noted. Increasing the PUD requirement for open space from 10% to 15 to make sure, again, if you're going to ask for waivers of X, Y, and Z, that we get something more back than the standard 10% of open space. And also required all open spaces to be connected with 5-foot internal pathways. Something, again, a lot of builders do, but it was not a requirement, so we wanted to make sure we had that as a minimum requirement. We also increased the width of landscape buffers adjacent to streets and roadways, typically, as I discussed 2 weeks ago, about 5 feet across the board, while requiring additional landscape amenities within the key gateways and corridors, which are outlined in the comp plan. Requiring both evergreen and deciduous trees within land use buffers, so not the street buffers, but the buffers between different land uses. And that's so that in the winter, you're not just left with sticks trying to help alleviate some noise and dust and things like that, but you also have evergreen trees there that are going to be year-round coverage and buffering. Also increased buffer widths when adjacent to residential uses across the board. Included a new requirement for landscaping around building walls and that face the street. So when you have a business that's near the street, they have a little 3-foot kind of landscape planter adjacent to the building to help with visual interest, even reduce heat gain, frankly, and just help beautify those corridors even more. Include a new requirement for landscaping around the perimeter parking lots as well for the same reasonings, to help beautify those, help buffer them even more from adjacent uses, and help prevent heat gain through the summer months. Proposed new standards to allow for water-wise drought tolerance. So current code already has that, but it's very, very limited on where it's applicable, and there was really one paragraph, so we are proposing some very specific standards and where they can be applied. As far as off-street parking goes, well, I guess, any questions on landscaping while I'm here?
No, you're good.
Okay. Off-street parking. We propose to simplify the requirements for all commercial uses to be 1 per 500 and all industrial uses to be 1 per 2,000. Those are pretty industry standard. Some businesses will want to do less and they're going to have to meet the minimum. Some places will want to do more, and that's just the way we let the market decide that. Multifamily parking is now required based on the number of bedrooms, which is different than our current code, which is just per unit. And then we added the requirement as well for guest parking for multifamily. So this would be an example. We went through this last time, but it's approximately 20-25%, depending on the project, of additional parking from the proposed code to what's currently there. Are there any questions on this? Because I know this parking is always a fun subject.
Looks good.
Okay. So after the commission hearing, we did make some specific changes that we wanted to call out for council. We removed the requirement for EV parking because of a recent state bill that passed, and so we just struck that from the code. We also included design requirements for deed-restricted affordable housing within the density bonus program. And note, again, just because you qualify, if you do qualify for the density bonus program, you're not automatically going to get out of other requirements. It's not how that works. You're not getting alleviations for something simply by doing the density bonus program. There are, frankly, jurisdictions in other states or even maybe in this state that do that, but that's not part of what we've proposed at all. You cannot try to get your density bonus, but you will still have to comply with those minimum standards in other sections of code. We also included that an application for density bonus that does utilize deed-restricted affordable housing, that you have to come to you, city council, with a city council level special use permit. And again, just to allow for additional level of review for council so you feel comfortable approving such a project. Are there any changes or any questions on those?
No, look good.
Okay. Article 3 is for the administrative procedures for all the things that we do. We, again, cleaned up the language throughout. Within the design review section, we created the design review process and really outlined it, expanded upon it to be more than what it is currently, which is pretty much just the city center, and to make sure that it includes all the overlay zones and all of downtown, not just city center. And then we also included the new density bonus program. For tonight, we wanted to just note that there are 2 separate versions of approval for you tonight, one with and one without the density bonus. So if you guys need to make your motion, and however you guys decide upon that, you have those 2 options tonight. As far as the density bonus program, just to reiterate the point system. So You have to have a minimum of 4 points to get the full maximum density. So you don't just, and there's very minimal things on the list that you can do to get the full 4 just by doing one thing. Typically, you're gonna have to do multiple things, all of which are hard to do. They're not something that is as simple as, well, I threw in a tot lot, so give me 4 units per acre. That's not how this goes. Or simply ask for it through the PUD, which is how current code is, or was through the comprehensive plan at the time. So, the rest of this, we wanted to note that a lot of the existing criteria, whether through the density bonus program or simply by the use that would be used for that, it's gonna have to come to city council in some fashion regardless. So again, deed restricted affordable housing, council level SUP. If you have amenities within a subdivision, subdivision has to come before council as well. The dedication of land for parks, it already says it has to be approved by city council. So there's some review level there, whether that's for the park or dedication of land for the school to the city in general. The other director level things are director level, so Ms. Collins gets to approve those. And that's something that is already outlined in code for a number of different things, so that's no different than anything now. And we did want to reiterate the summary of the densities, just to make sure for clarity's sake for council as well as the public, that there's the old comp plan / old code in the second to the left column, and then the proposed density through the density bonus. So R1 zone, not allowed. Current code, technically, you can go from 3 to 6 if the old comp plan was still in place. So we're just not allowing that at all for the R1 zone with this new program. Within the R2 zone, which would have been the former medium density, now that's a zone that's within the neighborhood 2, the max already was 12, the current max would be 12, so there's no increase in there. And again, that was something that you could simply request by only doing a PUD and meeting those relatively minimal standards. The new density bonus program is, by all accounts and purposes, especially from what we've feedback, much more harder to obtain and stricter criteria than what current code is. But again, no increase in the density there. Within the neighborhood 3, which would be a lot of the areas closer to major corridors and formerly high density residential, we're actually reducing the allowable max density, and that's the comp plan area. So current is 40 units per acre, and proposed would be 25. So it's a 37.5% reduction in the maximum density. Urban neighborhood, similar story. Current is 20, proposed would be 16. Downtown is currently unlimited. There is no maximum listed, or was none in the comp plan. New talks about 60 as being a cap, but to go above that, you have to have city council approval. So again, another level of review for city council. Within the community center, there's a reduction similar to the neighborhood 3, again, going from 40 down to 25 units per acre, and then the mixed use center staying the same. And we put the highway corridor zone on both of those just as an example zone, but other zones are applicable in that. But if they want to do residential uses within those zones, then they have to have a residential zone. So just wanted to iterate the densities overall, even through the density bonus program, are equal to or less than what the current PUD and old comp plan allowed.
Yeah, do you mind maybe go back to that slide? I think we might have a couple
Sure.
questions.
Absolutely.
Williams.
Joe, is it fair to argue by lowering the density allowance here, we're actually almost encouraging urban sprawl?
Councilor Williams, I didn't think I would get that question. It's a good question, though. I believe from a standpoint of on paper looking at it, yes, you're reducing some densities, whether it be high density or in your urban core, and you would indicate, yeah, those units would go elsewhere. That is true. I can't deny that based upon this. This is based out of the comp plan, which is also where the density bonus program came from. So I just do want to reiterate that this was not something that has been just thrown out there. It's something that we've discussed many, many times publicly with the public as well as with council. But to your point, theoretically, yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I might,
Robin.
I'll just add to that. And like Joe said, theoretically, but I don't think so. And here's why. Because when we went through the comp plan process and we looked at these areas where we had those densities, like 40 dwelling units per acre, and we compared that to a lot of other jurisdictions and just in general what you see out there, we recognized that a lot of our allowable densities were actually too high for Caldwell. So although people might think you're encouraging sprawl, you're not. You're still encouraging that infill, but what you're doing is you're being more realistic in what you're going to get, right? Because some of those dwelling units per acre were not realistic in them developing them unless they ended up being like 10 or 12 stories high, or, you know, the subsidized housing or something like that, where they could afford to build those projects at that higher density. And so where we saw those densities being too high in those areas for services to be provided for those densities, those were decreased. In the areas where services have good capacity and they can serve those types of uses, that's where you'll see them staying the same, and we haven't increased them, if that helps at all.
Yeah, for sure. Cap?
Thank you. Thank you, Director. That's a better answer than I could provide. So still sticking with the density bonus, we wanted to just reiterate what some of the criteria are. So for deed restricted, we're required a SGP at council level. There's our different levels, 1, 2, 3, and 4 points. It's hard to fit that on one screen, but that's something that's available for all of those. And again, 1 point would be 25% of the allowable bonus, 2 points would be 50%, et cetera. The amenities, universal design, all of these are potentials. Again, you don't get the full density bonus with many items here. So housing variation, 25% constructed ADUs, incorporate 3 different housing types, et cetera. Open space, the dedication of the public parks or for public land in general have to be approved by city council. So this is just another way to look at the table and what I had noted before of different criteria that's going to have to be approved by city council at some level regardless. In this section, again, dedication of land for parks, public facilities, et cetera. Any final questions on this density bonus program or criteria or feedback?
Councilor Stoddard?
Mr. Mayor, Joe, I wish we could come up with a formula on these parking issues, like 1.5 cars per unit. Why can't we round that off to either 2 or 1? Why do we always have to come up with a half? I mean, it's just, to me, it's so ridiculous, but.
Because in the aggregate, you'll get that extra space or 10 down the line, so that's why you don't typically want to round down. But if you round up, you might overpark something, for example. But in that example, we're changing that anyways to be per bedroom, so we're going to increase the required parking regardless.
Because when people look at this and they see that 0.5, so is that a half a parking place, or what is it? See?
If it was, let's say it only required the 1, like they did 1 unit, then it would round up, yes. But per unit, when you start doing that, the aggregate ends up.
So it actually would be 2, the 1.5 would actually be 2 then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Dittenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Joe, I have a question. So in the things that we deal with now, we may have an applicant that comes in that has some entitlements and they want some sort of a variance on their entitlement. And so they're asking for us to amend something or to consider something new, or it expired and but here's a replacement one and whatever. And so now we're talking about a new process with a density bonus where we may be asked to approve a city park at the same time we're approving a development. Is that the case?
Councilor Dittenberg, Mayor, and Council, not so much the park itself, but the location and just the acreage. For an example, if you happen to have, I can think of one actually right now that has not yet submitted, they have a project that's, they have land right next to a proposed city park. If, for an example, they wanted to dedicate an additional 5 acres or something like that, then you guys would have the opportunity to review that and say, yeah, we don't really want that, or we don't need it, but we appreciate that you thought about that because it's nearby the existing park. But actual reviewing park plans and what that's gonna look like. No, that would not be part of that project's public hearing. Just the location and whether you want it or not.
Follow-up question? So then with regards to the staff report, we're gonna get a staff report, just like we get one now. There's gonna be a section in there for the density bonus, and it's gonna trigger some sort of an additional review. I would hope that our Parks Director would get a nice letter from you guys, right? Saying, listen, they're offering a 5.5 acre park, what do you think? And that'll be part of the staff report before it comes to city council, before we consider any density bonus?
Council, Mayor, absolutely, yes. It's same as now. That's no different than now. If somebody happens to be proposing land for a police station, we're not gonna bring that forward unless we've talked with police about that and whether this makes sense or is where they need it to be. So absolutely.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. So moving on to the next sections, we do have Article 5 through 9, where again, we kind of separated out the uses, residential, commercial, industrial, your urban core, and then your special purpose districts. And this is so it's easier. Somebody who knows, all right, I'm proposing a residential subdivision, should probably start in Article 5. If not there, Article 2, which is applicable to all zoning districts. So we're trying to make that simpler. That's why we moved things around and put them in this organization. Within those 5 sections or articles, there's a lot of common amendments. So we created different land use tables specific to those districts. Right now, we have one land use table for everything except for traditional neighborhood, highway corridor, and your downtown. Now we put everything into their individual ones, so that way, if you're looking for residential uses, you know to go to the residential section. If you're looking for industrial uses, you go to that, rather than the very cumbersome table that we have now. So we also then created dimensional standards specific to those districts, created density tables specific to those districts with the inclusion of the prohibition that R1 cannot be part of the density bonus program. We also consolidated some land uses into a main category, example, personal services and retail sales. So there's just general, like personal services used to include a number of things that were already split out. We just made them personal services because they all will be regulated the same. Now we also changed the way we measure height of buildings. So we did increase the height by 5 feet in the R1, R2, and R3 zones, but only because we changed how we're measuring them. Currently, we measure them to the midpoint. It's some weird calculation. And then now we're proposing to go to the peak. So that way, it's just very simple. Finished grade to peak, very easy to look at a plan and know what that is. Architects understand what that is as well. Overall, it's not really an increase in height. You can look at where the midpoint's measured. There are a number of homes that their peak is well above what the current is. So it's not an increase in height. It's just changing how we measure it. But we wanted to make sure we did not make a number of homes, whether they're in current building phase or even existing. We didn't want to make them all legal non-conforming all of a sudden. So we just wanted to give that 5 feet of relief, I guess you could say, and make sure we're balanced there. As far as major changes within these, we proposed storage units to only be allowed within the industrial zones by council level SUP. We made multifamily triplexes and up, which complies with building code and is consistent probably throughout the valley at this point. And we also stated they have to comply with the multifamily development code with some strict site design criteria. We also split townhomes into 2 categories, which should be 3 or less or 4 or more. And then again, that's partially because of the building code requirements, and they should be, and the building and massing of those buildings. When you have 3 units versus 5, buildings look very different. They should be regulated differently because of the impact there. We also are proposing allowance for accessory dwelling units to be permitted with all single-family homes. We've discussed that as well. Happy to answer more questions on the ADU component. Also reduce the lot sizes for R2 and R3, no reduction for R1. And again, that's to help differentiate between those 3 zones. Right now, they're very similar, so that's why we have a ton of development in one zoning district versus others. Now there should be different opportunities for different land uses and different dimensional standards, different housing types even, within the different zoning districts, which is why you have different zoning districts in a city. We are also proposing allowance of more commercial uses within the industrial zones and frankly, the residential zones as well, in order to comply with some of the recommendations within the comp plan, and as an example to the project that was discussed before, get some of these commercial uses in areas that the city currently doesn't have many, just because they're wholly residential or wholly industrial. We want to help offer some commercial amenities within those areas, without having to do a major rezone, would be the purpose of that. We're also proposing multifamily with 7 or more to be a city council level SUP. Proposing provisions for requiring commercial to front major arterials when there is a mixed-use project with residential. So in those mixed-use center, community center, place types, or land use designations on the comp plan, we're wondering how much of that's gonna be commercial, how much is gonna be residential. This is helping the city regulate that by saying, well, if you're going to be fronting those major corridors, you're going to have commercial. Or if you're gonna do a mixed-use project, there'll at least be the first floor that we have commercial along those frontages as often as possible. Also proposing a 40-foot setback when industrial is located next to industrial. So that's a setback, a building setback, and that is a footnote within the table, and that's just to help, again, alleviate some noxious uses next to residential, buffer the residential more. And part of that would be requiring all industrial land uses to be enclosed within a building if they're within 500 feet of residential districts or structures. So that'd be having your residential storage, or sorry, your industrial storage or manufacturing within a building versus out in an open yard. And then again, help buffer the existing residential uses that may be nearby. Also proposing allowance of commercial at major intersections and residential districts that I noted. And then requiring design review for all of downtown, not city center. I mentioned that before. Big one, kudos to Robin for doing this, is including that the, I guess, quote unquote, older downtown framework plan that was already in existence but not adopted, and including that into the downtown section. So that way we have even more guidelines and things to help keep our downtown beautiful and revitalized. Also proposing vacant lots within the downtown city center to be landscaped if they're unutilized for more than 6 months in order to help reduce slum and blight. Prohibiting chain link fencing downtown seems pretty rational, except for on construction sites, obviously. That's just the way that they do it. Changing the parking standards for downtown to require full compliance if it's for residential or multifamily. And then remove the allowances for gas stations, car washes, warehouses, and body shops within the downtown districts as well as the traditional neighborhood district. And so again, reducing some of those auto-heavy uses like repair shops, car washes, things like that, from the downtown area where you don't typically want those. You want it to be more walkable and active in the pedestrian environment. Any questions on the 5 through 9?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor Cody.
So the vacant lots downtown currently, there are a few. So if this passes, would they get a letter that says, I mean, what is going to be the process? In 180 days, you have to landscape it per these standards, and if you don't, what are we gonna do?
Great question.
So there would be a process, and I will say we haven't completely worked through that yet, but there's some language in there that they have to, if they don't have a plan for development within 180 days, or they haven't, communicated with us, right, on what's gonna be happening, then we're gonna require them to submit landscape plans and stuff and show us what they're gonna do to that property for slum and blight. There is enforcement mechanism in that code section, and what we would probably end up doing is we would end up having to probably cite them for a misdemeanor citation for being in non-compliance, or take it a civil route.
Thank you.
Councilor Allgood.
Yeah, Joe. So, just before this hearing, we had a land use hearing, and it was an R1 zone land use. However, the majority of the lots were below R1 standards. With this new code, will we still see that kind of situation come in where you've got an R1 8,000 square foot lot and people can still come in and ask for variances in smaller lots, or does this code eliminate that?
Councilor Allgood, council. It does not eliminate the opportunity for people to request a PUD, no. However, the PUD criteria has changed, so it's harder to simply just request it for those simple waivers. We're not reducing the lot sizes in R1, so yes, council may still see that within the R1 district. The alternative, instead of seeing more PUDs, you might see more rezones to a more applicable zoning district. So again, instead of consistently reducing the lot sizes for R1, somebody may come in and be like, well, I can comply with R2, we're zoned R1, let me go the rezone route, which then has to come before city council. And with rezones, the city has the opportunity to require development agreements, which then gives the city more assurances on how a project is developed if we want to go down that route. So it does not prohibit it, no. But there's going to be other avenues that staff can tell them that they can utilize to do that and will still be heard before council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, my concern is if you're an R2 and you want to increase your density, you have to do this density bonus program. But if you're an R1, you can still request variances and not have to do the density bonus. Am I missing something?
Sorry, let me be very clear on that. You cannot use the PUD in the proposed code to increase your density. So you may be able to reduce your lot size, let's say from the 8,000 to 6,000, but the overall allowed density within that place type cannot be increased if you're still going to keep that R1 zone. So there's provisions in there to prevent that from happening.
That's what I was missing. All
Yes.
right, thank
My
you.
apologies, I misunderstood the first time.
And then this, if I can go on.
Yes.
Would you just, I struggle with the ADUs. You know, you and I have had that discussion. Is this code, this change that's in this new code, is it changing what we've done with ADUs previously?
Counselor Allgood, in the sense of allowing them permitted by right within all zoning district, or permitting them by right with single-family homes, yes, that's not current process. Now, in I believe R1, RS1, RS2, and R1, you have to do a special use permit. So we're proposing that if you have a single-family home, you should just be permitted to have your accessory dwelling unit to help, frankly, preserve private property rights on that way. So that is changing, yes. And then you've also proposed to increase the minimum size by 200 square feet in one bedroom. But those are the only changes.
So is that in compliance with state code? Because I know state code addresses this as well.
Yes, yes. We've had this reviewed and it does comply with state code, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the questions. Moving on to another section, we have Chapter 10, Article 11, which is the overlay zoning districts. As you can see, there are a number. Some of these are existing but weren't really in the code, or if they were buried, and frankly, I didn't even know about them. So, and other ones are just moving them into this section. So the airport overlay, entertainment overlay is for the event center district it's already been approved by city council. Taking the historic overlay districts and putting them here. The scenic overlay is new. Environmentally sensitive overlays was already in the previous comp plan, but now we've expanded upon it within here and placing it in code. And then the special development and urban design overlay is also new. So within the airport overlay, just added some additional land uses like hotels and motels. And want to note that all of these ordinance amendments within the airport zoning district as well as the overlay were discussed and accepted by the airport director. So we didn't just decide on a planning whim to go include something. I promise we discussed this with Scott and worked through anything that he may have wanted and we didn't want, as an example. Within the historic overlay districts, as we know, we have the Steunenberg, but then we've also added the North Caldwell Historic District to the list within our regulations, which has been on the books for many years technically, but did not have actual provisions within the code. So the code didn't note it as an applicable district, so that's why we added that. And then this creates the opportunity for future design standards for any of those homes or frankly lots within those historic overlays. For the scenic overlay districts, again, this is a new one. This is something that was called out in the comp plan, and frankly, every comp plan I've ever seen talks about those key gateways and corridors. This is codifying some of those recommendations. Frankly, noting what they are is a really big step forward, and that will then allow us in the future to create additional standards specifically for these key gateways and corridors. This would include design criteria for the building placement, landscaping, any architectural design that the city may want to see specific to a key corridor, whether that happens to be a historic area or some other futuristic thing that we wanted to do, saying that it creates the opportunity for us to do that. We also included the Boise River corridor and pathway requirements for that. So that was something very new that was not called out, and that was something that was in the comp plan that a lot of residents had noted as being something they wanted added. So now that will be part of the overall pathway requirement. Within the special development and urban design overlay, this includes the downtown area and the traditional, transitional neighborhood, the traditional neighborhood area. So your core and then that next rung outside of that. It also includes the area between the river and Centennial, and then the river and Simplot. Again, that's that Boise River area, corridor 2. All overlay zones will have and do have within this code additional prohibitions on the land uses within these overlays. We've had a number of property owners come and discuss with us, initially upset, frankly, saying that we ruined their life, et cetera, et cetera. After speaking with staff, after speaking with the director, we've talked all of them off the ledge, from my understanding, and we have helped them understand what these overlays mean, what are new potentials for the properties, et cetera. So at least the ones that I've discussed with this with, there's been some good feedback on this, and they understand why the decisions are being made here. Any questions on the overlay districts?
Councilor Dittenberg.
So one of my very first meetings with Robin, even though it got off to a rough start, was housing overlays, right? And taking a look at certain areas of the city and saying, how do we develop this in housing, and is there room in the ordinance if we wanted to implement a housing overlay or some sort of an overlay that took a priority look on a certain area just for housing? Could that be accommodated in our code?
Councilor Dittenberg, Mayor, Council, yes, it can. Nothing in the code would prohibit that from being a future amendment. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Moving to Article 12, which I believe this is the current downtown section. Now moving that to the other sections that we noted, opens up a whole new layer of possibilities, which is specific use provisions. So these are uses that are typically going to be permitted within the land use schedule, no matter what district they may be in. But these are additional standards on top of base standards that would be required. This is something that allows us to regulate things more in depth and more specifically without having to do a public hearing that just slows everything down. So these would include adult businesses, automotive uses, drone delivery, modular buildings, mobile food unit parks, not just the individual units, but if you want to do more than one, shooting ranges, establishments serving liquor or beer, all of those types of things. There's a number of them that are new. There's also some that are existing that are only regulated currently in the downtown code section, but we've broadened that to now include regulations across the board wherever they are. This is a relatively extensive section. We did move accessory use standards here. We also moved wireless communication facilities here. We moved a few other sections into this and made some modifications. I will note within the wireless communication, we included new provisions for small scale things that we did not have any provisions for at currently. So that's something that was important. I think we've even had some people reach out about that, that do those, and appreciate that we were a little bit ahead of the game on that. Do you guys have any questions on the specific use provisions?
Joe,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify that some of these uses still actually do require special use permits at the council level. They're not all
yes.
outright permitted.
Very fair point, my apologies. Like adult businesses or establishments serving liquor, things like that.
Okay.
Okay. And then again, PUDs, Article 13, as noted, deleted the ability for density to be allowed to be increased as part of the PUD. We also deleted the ability to have prohibited uses. So current code, as you heard with the last land use application, you could do 30% of specially permitted or non-permitted. Now it's just the specially permitted, not the non-permitted. Requiring 3 minimum housing types versus, I believe, the current code is 2. Now, it cannot reduce the required number of amenities. So again, people were using the PUD code to amend the PUD code. So we kind of overall have cleaned that up so that you can't use the code to alleviate the code. So that's part of it. It's not reducing the required number of amenities. If they are reducing or requesting deviations from the dimensional standards, the setbacks, building height, et cetera, that they have to provide additional amenities above and beyond those minimum already outlined. And then again, if they are going to reduce, even if they've reduced the lot sizes by half, as an example, the overall density cannot be increased through the PUD. They'd have to go the density bonus route, which has more stringent criteria, as we've already discussed. And then we also changed the definition of infill for the sake of PUDs to reduce it from 20 acres to 5 acres, which reduces the number of lots and projects, frankly, that would be eligible for this. Because if you have a parcel that is larger, like 20 acres, for example, you should be able to comply with those general standards. There should not be a reason to be deviating. And so that's why PUDs historically are used for those infill developments, those smaller lots, those constrained lots, in order to help say, hey, we can't get what we're allowed by right to get in density unless we have this little deviation here. And that's why we've changed that within the PUD code. Any questions on the PUD? All right. Moving on to, I believe, the last section. Article 14, multifamily development. We've discussed this many, many times, hopefully for the betterment of council's belief in what they're going to receive, as well as for what the developers will know is expected of them. So we've included minimum site design standards, minimum building design standards, as well as the minimum buffering requirements that include undulating berms. We also increased the setbacks and buffering when they're adjacent to other residential types, and requiring both a minimum 10% overall, and then if they hit a certain threshold, a minimum 10%, a minimum qualified open space per unit in addition to the 10%. So again, you have your 10%, and then in addition to that, you have to do it per unit based upon the size of the units. And then requiring a minimum 60 square feet of private open space for each unit too. So balconies, patios, something like that. As far as the design criteria, this is an example that we've used before of showing different accent materials, different roof profiles, the landscaping and berms in the front with different ground cover, as well as an increased number of trees, also a slightly further setback, different materials even on the face of the elevation, showing that there's a bottom, middle, top kind of thing, having accent materials and accent colors, even thoughtful lighting as an example. Those are all things that are highlighted within those minimum design standards in this article. With that, I will stand for any questions, as well as Director Collins is here too, and that'd be for individual sections of the whole shebang.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any general questions at this time for Joe? Okay, I don't see any at the moment, so. Yes,
I just want to thank you for all your work on this, Joe. We're blessed to have you with the city of Caldwell, and I know you've done a lot of work on this, and well done.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Definitely not just me, full team effort, 100%. So appreciate that. We appreciate the positive feedback too. Frankly, if I may say, a lot of our job is hearing how bad we do things. So it's nice to hear how good we do things too. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. You did a great job. Okay, excellent. So we do have a number of people signed up to testify. So when you do come forward, please do state your name and address. You will be given 3 minutes for your testimony, and then you will be allowed, there'll be questions after that as well. So if you don't get through your 3 minutes, there should be some questions that come your way. So please do listen. There'll be a timer up. You'll see it here and there. You'll hear a buzzer at the end. When you hear that, we'd ask you to please just wrap up your last comment that you may be making, and then stand for questions. So we'll begin with those signed up in support of this request. First, Dale King had signed up in favor. So if you could, again, just state your name and address for the record, and then after that you will have 3 minutes to share your testimony.
Dale King, Faber Construction. Our office is located at 275 North 3rd East Street in Mountain Home. I want to thank city staff. This is a monumental undertaking, especially with trying to do change of codes and big things like that. So that's a huge undertaking when you start. So congratulations to you guys for seeing that through and taking what I would say swords and arrows from the public comments too as well. The big thing that I want to speak to tonight is in regards to density bonuses. You are decreasing in the area, and Counselor Allgood stated, or sorry, Dietrich stated, are we decreasing the units on that particular area? So there are some areas where you're trying to accomplish that. With the density bonuses, if you have those in certain corridors, such as your downtown core, your highway corridors, things where you've already established your roadways, your structures, your amenities, waters, all this good stuff to take on more demand for the public, that's where your density bonuses take larger effect and would stop that urban sprawl, because you're putting your densities in areas where all your infrastructure is already in place and established. And I've listened over the past couple of years, especially with the city council, that's been the big hard part within the communities about changing, doing PUDs. Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the roads? Do we have the water available in those particular communities? Your density bonuses within your highway corridors in your downtown relieve that pressure in trying to put people in your central areas where you already have that taken care of. The big thing about density bonuses I would also try to speak to is not having larger areas, trying to make smaller footprints and making those buildings go up. And when you do that, then you've got larger corridor areas. You've got less impact on the land and all the good stuff as you go on. So that needs to be considered within your density bonus programs. Also, having the aspect of different housing types, right? Affordable housing componentries, mixed-use areas, all this good stuff needs to be stressed within those density bonuses, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to create communities where you do have commercial, where you do have retail, where you do have residential, and it's all walkable areas, especially on 2026, where all this growth is going on these days. Another thing is trying to affect seniors too as well, by telling your developers, if you're going up, you've got to have elevators in those particular buildings. That way they have accessible to every single floor as they go through that particular program. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions from council? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Virjon, you had signed up in support of this as well, is that correct?
No, I didn't specify if I was signed up for support or
So
against it.
so on the sheet, it was in support. Do you want me to change that to neutral or opposition or?
You can put it as neutral.
Neutral? Okay, so I'll just make that note. Okay,
So,
so name and
Virion
address and
Virion Brahim Larry, I live on 11098 West Abram Drive in Boise. So the reason why I'm here today is because I suggested to the zoning staff to take in consideration the properties that are adjacent to the freeway in a traditional neighborhood zoning, because with the current land use and the new comp plan, these properties are not being taken into account for the unique location and how they're being affected. These properties are adjacent to freeway, which they get affected by the noises, by everything, and over 40 land uses have been removed from this traditional neighborhood, which leaves these properties in disadvantage, and it does not allow its full potential. So that's why I suggested to the zoning staff to include the small-scale auto sale specifically for these properties that are next to the freeway, because of the visibility and the accessibility of these properties to the freeway. Like when everyone buys a car, the purpose is to take this car and drive it in the freeway, so they can test at a high speed or the limit speed. Now, by putting this kind of land use for these properties, the freeway is right there. You don't create traffic. Instead of when you have in Caldwell Boulevard, all the cars are going to go on the freeway, which is going to create extra traffic. And in general, these properties need to have more freeway commercial uses in the land use for and traditional neighborhood zoning looks like it does not, except some fast food uses or restaurants. Other commercial uses are not being reflected for these properties. So yeah, I suggest it probably is like maybe less than a dozen of properties that are next to the freeway that I think the zoning needs to be take into account for these properties. And mostly, I did submit my comments via email. Today I'm here mostly if anyone has any question.
Perfect, thank you so much. Questions from council? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming, sharing that. Okay, so this is moving to neutral. Rajan mentioned he is neutral on this request, just stating the amendment that he'd like to see in regards to the auto sales, minor auto sales. Also in neutral, signed up was Vanessa Martinez. Is Vanessa here? Okay, I do not see her. So we have a few people signed up in opposition. First is Monte Cooper. So if you could again just state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
All right. Okay. Monte Cooper, P.O. Box 39, Eagle, Idaho, 83629. And again, appreciate you letting me come up here and speak for a moment. I own an 18-acre parcel on Ustick Road, just west of Middleton Road, and it's currently zoned C3 and falls within the airport overlay. I just want to begin with saying that I appreciate all the thoughtful work that's gone into this by Joe and everybody at P&Z and how it supports the city's long-term planning efforts. I know these updates are part of a broader vision, and I respect all the time and effort that's been involved up to this point. With that said, I'm here tonight to respectfully share how these proposed changes, specifically the removal of light industrial and RV-related uses from the C3 district, will have a direct and damaging impact on my property and reduce property market value potentially to a pretty great deal. Given the constraints already placed on my site with the airport overlay, light industrial uses are not just appropriate, they're some of the only logical uses for viable development in that corridor at this time. Eliminating those uses severely limits my property can support and has already disrupted active discussions with qualified buyers. I've met with planning staff the past week and was encouraged by their professionalism and their suggestion to try to pursue a C4 rezone to retain the units that are currently in C3 that we have clients looking at for the site. And I'm certainly open to that solution, but I also want to be candid. The rezoning process comes with quite a few meaningful costs, including an application fees approaching nearly $4,000, legal expenses and months of delay, and lost momentum that we have with potential clients and buyers of the site, just due to the uncertainty of what direction things will go. So I'm here tonight asking respectfully that City Council consider retaining light industrial and RV sales as a permitted C3 use, especially in areas with the airport overlay, as those uses are naturally suited with the noise impact and everything that goes along with that corridor. If that isn't feasible, I would encourage consideration of site-specific exceptions or a grandfathering mechanism for properties like mine that are already materially affected and will be more so than other C3 properties. Finally, if none of those options are available, I would like to City Council at least consider waiving the rezoning fees, as I'm only seeking to preserve uses that are currently permitted in the existing land use schedule. We all want to be supportive of the city's long-term vision, but we also hope to do so in a way that doesn't unintentionally set back individual landowners like myself who have acted in good faith under the city's long-term zoning code. If you have any questions, I asked a letter be included in your packet tonight, but I've got other copies of that kind of explain some of our research and what's gone on. That's pretty much it.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions from council? So I do have one, just to clarify and make sure I understand. So yours is more of a question of RV sales, is that correct?
RV sales and light industrial, electronics assembly, and some warehousing that are currently permitted that will go away. But we've had multiple clients look at the site over the years and have been under PSA recently with a few, and it always falls into that use. 98% of our contact with users for the site, whether we're developing or selling the site as a core, have unfortunately all fell into that with distance to utilities and that impact of the airport and all the noise out there, which we understand, but certain things just don't work with that, and that's why we see the users that fall into this category that we bought the property intended for with C3's current uses.
Yeah, so currently, it's either an allowed use or a special use in the C3, and with this change, it would have to be a light industrial zone, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, so C4 will, and that's Joe's great comment on that. It does become a permitted or a SUP use in C4, and the permitted use that's currently in C3 is just being struck altogether. So I mean, it's definitely a viable solution to correct that. Our concern is the extension of time of 3 to 5 months to get down to that road, and uncertainty that we go through in that time, and expense too to get to that, that leaving something that's currently vested and now becoming a bit of a question mark.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next signed up is Tom Meyer. So if you could state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes as well.
Tom Meyer, 4982 Highway 52, Aglandia Property Management. I'm calling, I'm not sure I'm in opposition. I might be in the neutral category. I didn't see your neutral paper. But Joe, if you guys have some stuff, I'd like you to look up property 623 North 14th Street, Caldwell, Idaho. I'm calling about that property. I manage the Ida Wheels Mobile Home Park, and abutting that property is a 1.46 acre piece of land that's full of weeds and pretty trashy, along with this mobile home park that I took over management. So as we've been cleaning up this park, we're looking to acquire that land at 623 North 14th Street. What brings me here is I called planning department, and they told me on the 21st it's going to get rezoned, that parcel. Right now, it's stated that you could have a mobile home park there. And what I find interesting is when you read your comprehensive plan on page 5, the top thing you talk about in your legal basis says to protect private property rights while making accommodations for other necessary types of development, such as low-cost housing and mobile home parks. So the million-dollar question is, this property has no other viable use. It's next to a mobile home park. We have a bazillion people, because I'm in the industry, that can't afford your $400,000 new developments, which I heard about all tonight. And you guys are out there rezoning this to make it so I can build duplexes, fourplexes, townhomes. We don't need any more of that. I work for a developer, because I'm also a realtor in Boise, who increased density in downtown Boise to encourage infill, because yes, when you increase density, you reduce urban sprawl. I've been here for 20 years. If all these towns don't start looking at increasing density within the city limits, you're not going to have ag land. You're going to increase urban sprawl, and this will look a lot like a place called Southern California. I know, so came from there. So my question to you guys is, why'd you rezone it? That's all I got.
Great. Questions from council? Do you know when that rezone, so you're saying that the city initiated a rezone on that property?
Yep, that parcel, as of today, if you guys approve it, is going to be rezoned where you can't put a mobile home park, in contradiction to your comprehensive plan, who talks about encouraging mobile home parks for the very people that if they can't afford those low-income housing, they're living on the streets. I mean, you're talking $800 rents, $500, $700 rents. A $400,000 townhouse, that's about $2,200, $2,300, $2,400 rents, or a $3,800 mortgage payment. I'm in the business, guys. We need low-income housing. We need to encourage it. And you're not encouraging it by rezoning a parcel that abuts an existing mobile home park and getting rid of the very thing your comprehensive plan talks about. So all I'm asking is, before you vote and you press yes or whatever, think about what you're doing here. That's all I got.
Okay, yeah, excellent. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks.
Appreciate that. So maybe a quick question for staff. So you can go ahead and sit down. So it's for staff. Currently in the traditional neighborhood is an SUP for a mobile home park. Is that
Mr.
correct?
Mayor, Council, thank you. And I did want to clarify before even that, we did not rezone any property. I think this happens all the time, right? There's just a misunderstanding of the terms used. These are zoning code amendment changes that would change the allowed uses within the existing zone, which is traditional neighborhood over in this area. It's actually within the special purpose overlay or special purpose place type in the new comp plan. I'm not aware of anywhere in the new comp plan that it talks about mobile home parks, but I haven't done like a control F to find that phrase. I probably did in the older comp plan. But the mobile home park component, again, my understanding is it's not permitted, period, because the whole construction component of mobile homes and the safety hazards that's been known within those, that would be a modular structure constructed prior to, I believe it's 1976 is the date. Things constructed after 1976 are considered manufactured homes.
Okay, so yeah, maybe we'll use that. So manufactured home park, is that currently an SUP in the traditional neighborhood and it's going to not allowed? Is that, I think that's what the intent was, that was.
It shows manufactured home park as an SUP in traditional neighborhood currently. The proposed code, we'll pull it up.
Backwards.
Other way.
One moment, I'm having scrolling difficulties.
Might be under.
A manufactured home community or development is an SUP in the traditional neighborhood,
In the proposed,
in the
yes.
proposed code.
So when this came through, I believe one of the staff members talked to me about it, and mobile home is a very specific term versus manufactured home, and that's probably where he got that information. If it's mobile homes constructed prior to 1976, not permitted. No, you would not be able to expand the existing mobile home park, but with the new code, you could do a new manufactured home park, yes. Now, there are specific criteria, I'll note, I would put this in the email too, with the specific use provisions that we propose in Article 12, you'll want to look at those too. We can discuss that at a later time.
Just,
Okay.
yeah, just know your comprehensive plan that you guys approved on February 18th speaks about mobile home parks.
It does, okay.
It says
Mobile home, so we
Okay.
need to update that on our end.
Sure.
So appreciate that information and glad we got that clarified.
Yes,
So
no,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much for being here. Okay, next is Brent Coles. If you could again just state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor Wagner, members of the Caldwell City Council. My name is Brent Coles. I'm at 336 Presidential Drive, Meridian, Idaho. I'm a colleague of Monty Cooper. Been working with him for the last 4 years on that 18-acre piece of property, doing marketing, et cetera. And just wanted to stand on the record in support of his request that the light industrial continue to be, light industrial continue to be an allowed use in the C3 zone. He's relied upon that for the last 4 years in marketing, and he's had many different clients come forward, take a look at the property. Also, the RV sales, which, as we all know, would generate quite a bit of sales tax in the community. That has been specifically a due diligence, and a national company came in and did quite a bit of due diligence on that property. So we know it's viable and the opportunities are there. The marketing, of course, with the economy as it goes up and down. We've worked diligently to try and move this property, put it into a good use in the city of Caldwell. We met with the airport director over the period of time. We've met with your economic development director, and we do appreciate the opportunity we've had to meet with the planning department, and they did. The staff, that is Joe and Morgan, came up with the idea if we have to go forward, if we're not able to have the light industrial as part of C3, then we would move forward with the C4 zoning request. But again, that takes out this next 3 to 4 months. You've got clients coming forward in the summertime, the springtime, the summer. We've got people. It's a great time to be marketing this piece of property, and you just put that bit of doubt in a client that's doing their due diligence. So with that, I just respectfully make those requests and appreciate your time. Any questions?
Thanks so much. Any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
You do have a letter from Monty in your
in the packet. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you. Jacob Wild. So Jacob Wild, he signed up in opposition but not to testify. It appears that he's not here. Jim Rice. So Jim, if you could just again state your name and address for the record, then you'll have 3 minutes as well.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Jim Rice, 225 Appalachian Street, Caldwell. That's my home. I know all of you. I've known you for a while. There's a lot of this that I really like. There's part that I have some real qualms about, and it's the development bonus program. It has some real potential, I think, for some problems. One of the things that we've done in Caldwell, it took years to do it, is we moved from being the cheap bedroom community of the valley to having a really good mix. And my read of the development bonus program is that it'll create an incentive to move back the other direction. And the problem with moving the other direction is the service level that's required for that type of housing costs more than it produces in property taxes. And so if we move the wrong direction in our mix, it can create some budgetary problems. There's a couple other things. Some of the things that give the bonuses, because they're council approval, and the only way it'd be workable is for them to be council approval, you're going to create a situation where whether you favor some people over others or not, the appearance will be there and accusations will be there. And it does also create some potential for litigation as a result. And so those are some reasons for caution about having that. And I did notice that they had set it up so that you have an alternative that doesn't include it, and I would encourage you to not include it. I also had one other thing that I noticed as we went through was the Boise River Pathways stuff. When the mayor and I were in the legislature, Senator Guthrie brought some legislation that was about stopping cities from causing or making people dedicate those pathways or taking those areas along rivers. And I don't know if that would have an impact on you the way that's written, but you should probably check and just make sure that it's not going to create a problem. And that's just me remembering something. The other thing that I really appreciate all of you. I don't have to run for office anymore, and I don't intend to ever run for office again. I got my chance to serve, and I appreciate you all for serving, and I root for you and pray for you and wish you the best. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate it. Any questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Good to see you. The last person signed up is Laura Shannon. So if you can just state your name and address as well, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Okay, I'm Laura Shannon. I live at 4707 Middlesboro Way. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. The issues in these code amendments are numerous, and several of them deserve their own conversations. A foremost concern is the density bonus program. I noticed the chart displayed tonight was different than the one in a previous presentation that showed that the current max for most of the residential area was 6 units per acre, and that that was just upped with the comprehensive plan to 8 units per acre. And if the density bonus program goes into effect, that would become the potential for 12 units per acre. Those densities are even more concerning with some of the other place types. Anyone who's been following this process has heard hours of presentation from the planners. But Mayor, I'd love to hear more conversation from the council, people that represent us. It would be so helpful to hear the debate, the merits and the drawbacks of these codes before they're passed, including the density bonus program. and the philosophy of mixed income housing and the ADU criteria. Although the state requires us to put ADU or allow ADUs, municipalities can make their own criteria for those, or maybe I want to say, anyway, they can make their regulations for size and placement and parking specifications. And also, most municipalities allow HOAs to further have a say in what those regulations are. As you know, the last comprehensive plan was supposed to take us 20 years into the future, and after a couple of years, it was decided that we needed a new plan. So here we are with a plan that's supposed to be the community's vision for the next 20 years. It's been explained to me that the plan must be updated because developers are bringing variances before the council too often. I don't have an understanding of why the council has felt compelled to entertain those variances. From my perspective, with all due respect, it's like saying the kids on the playground are breaking rules too often. The teachers usually don't hold the line on those rules, and we need to create a more permissive set of playground rules. Before any ordinances are passed, I want to reiterate that I do not believe this plan is necessarily Caldwell's vision for itself. I'd love to sit down and explain the fallacy of those community engagement figures. For one, it was claimed that the website had 32,000 hits. Staff sent me this email explaining that that number included every hit by me, every hit by each of you, every hit by the public, and every hit by every individual employed to create the plan over several months. If one knows the community input was not impressive, it should not have been claimed as a basis for this project. On February 18th, staff told you, and I quote, "The codes have nothing to do with the comp plan right now." Perhaps it seemed inconsequential to approve the plan because it was only a vision, but the rubber will meet the road with the approval of these code amendments. Unlike the previous plan, ordinances will give this plan teeth. They may well preclude, by law, the denial of development which complies with these codes. Please discuss, debate, and exercise discernment in ordinances you approve. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you being here and taking the time. Okay, so that is all that is signed up to speak on this matter. Obviously, we don't need to have rebuttals. This is a legislative matter for coming before the staff. So we probably don't need a closed public testimony either, right? Because this was legislative and we just allowed it because obviously we wanted to get the feedback from the community. So I again want to thank everyone that came and expressed their thoughts and their testimony in regards to this matter, whether in favor or against or neutral. I know that I appreciated what you said, and I know we at least answered a few questions already, which is great. So with that, this will go now to council for your discussion, and I would highly recommend, I appreciate that suggestion there to ensure that we do have some very healthy discussion on this, because it is a big and important matter, and numerous changes, so I would highly recommend that we get some good thorough discussion on these items, even if it means having to discuss tonight and continue it to another night as well to have further discussion. I think it really merits that on that. So with that though, it is up to you, council, how you wish to proceed, so I'll turn it over to your hands for any discussion, any questions, and anything else you wish to bring forward. Councilor Allgood.
Yeah, thank you. This has been one that I have struggled with a lot, and I want to express my appreciation to Robin and Joe and the staff. They have fielded many phone calls and meetings from me just trying to understand, because I agree a lot with what Jim Rice just said, is we reduce our values, increase our requirements for service. It doesn't pay for itself, and I struggle with that. I've lived through that. And not just the bonus density program. Anytime we do increases in density, we see that, and so I struggle with that. And so, like I said, I am not a fan of everything in this code. However, I think one of the slides that Joe showed expressed it the best in that we're actually reducing density. Again, I don't care for density. I believe it reduces value, and so, anyway, I have worked myself into agreeing with most of this code. And again, I appreciate them giving me the opportunity to ask all those questions. And if it does get my vote tonight, it will be because we are actually reducing density in areas rather than increasing density in areas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that. Council Register.
Thank you. So I don't dislike all the code changes either. I think you guys have done a really nice job, and I think it's gonna do a lot of really good things for us that needed to be done. Really, I think horribly needed, or badly needed to be done, not horribly, but you know what I mean. However, I do want to suggest maybe, because this is such a big decision and there's still some on the fence, I have a couple of different suggestions. One, and I'm not sure if this is even something that we can do, so I'll ask you, is there a way, I know that planning and zoning also had some concerns, and then when I spoke to Robin about it today, she said it was only one commissioner. But is there any way to have a joint workshop with planning and zoning before we make any big decisions to make sure that everybody's just on the same page and that there weren't other amendments that they were requesting and things like that, or is that not, can we not do that?
I think it's legally possible. It kind of depend on, the council. If, there was a motion to do that and the majority of the council agreed to do a workshop with the Planning and Zoning Commission, you could. Obviously, it's gone to Planning and Zoning Commission. They're not an elected body. They're appointed by all of you. But if the majority of the council wished to do something of that nature, I don't think that'd be illegal. Obviously, we just have to notice it properly and do that, but again, it'd be up to the majority of the council.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering if that would help, clear up anything that's still hanging out there. So that one suggestion, but the other big suggestion that I have, I'm not going to vote for the bonus density. I don't think we're ready for it. I have some concerns about it, but if this council decides to vote for it, then I'm going to ask respectfully that anything that has to do with bonus density come back to the council. I know there are things that can be approved internally, but I just want to remind the council that we're an elected body, and one of the most important things we do is land uses and growth-related things, and because we are so rapidly growing, and because this program is new, I really think that it needs public and council oversight, and when we allow it to be approved internally, we take the council out of it, and I think that's kind of a dangerous precedence to set, especially if the people approving it report it directly to the mayor, because then it kind of becomes, could it become a mayoral decision instead of a council decision? It could, so I think that the checks and balances are important for that. So if you're going to vote for it, I certainly hope that you would at least have that, if not forever, at least for a little while, since it's brand new and we should be watching on that.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any other, Councilor Denver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, to the planning staff, you guys did a great job with this. I haven't talked with anybody who said the plan was bad. They have concerns about it, but remarkable effort that you did. And thanks for letting me come by your office unannounced. And it's a testament to a couple of different things. First of all, your answers were all the same every time I stopped by. So you all drank the same Kool-Aid. You all have the same level of motivation, the same level of knowledge, the same internal communications, and your efforts were just remarkable. So kudos for putting all this together. I was too at one time concerned about the density bonus in large part because I think in many cases people think density is the lack of standard, or we get more density by going with a cheaper siding, or we get more density by not having enough parking or whatever. So I'm very pleased that even though there's a density bonus, that people still have a design standard that they have to meet, and that design standard is non-waiverable. We don't waive off that. And if we're talking about affordable housing, and I'm a proponent of affordable housing, I've been in the affordable housing field for almost 26 years, And I believe that affordable housing is needed in all areas of our community, because we know that housing prices are $400,000 or $500,000, and my kids can't even live in my own community. And I'm concerned about my grandkids living in my own community, so we need affordable housing. But what I think the design standard does with the density bonus is it says, if you are going to get the density bonus, you have to build something of quality nature. And we want quality things in our community. We have the opportunity to drive the train here, and I would suspect that bringing those issues before council, especially with affordability, where we can take a look and make sure the design standards aren't compromised. I am, for that reason, I am in favor of the density bonus. I'm also extremely satisfied with the North Caldwell overlay. We've talked about North Caldwell for a long time, and there have even been previous administrations and previous mayors who have made commitments to that north end area. And even as I was talking with some people in the audience earlier today, some of the work that I've done in that north end area, and then it just goes away. We forget about it. So I'm extremely satisfied about that. One of the things I think I know about this, in chatting with all of you, because you've all consumed the same Kool-Aid, is with regards to our current codes and our current master plan, there's a lot of room for subjectivity. Well, why don't we do this, or why don't we do this, or why don't we bring in, or why don't we ask for a variance, or why don't we let this expire and do and we're just playing games with a lot of variances, which does provide a lot more liability that Senator Rice talked about. I think this master plan and this code changes, correct me if I'm wrong, takes the subjectivity out of it and now makes it objective. So here is a far more objective criteria by which we give people entitlements. And so for that reason, I favor the proposed changes, which I think were great, and I do support the density bonus.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was concerned as well, especially with the bonus density, and we've had several conversations about this. I don't mean to surprise you with this question either. We didn't dream up bonus densities. This is something that is done in other jurisdictions, and this is something that is tested in other places in other ways, I suppose, right?
Mayor and Councilor Williams, that's correct. Some people call it different. Some states make mandatory bonus density requirements. In Idaho, we cannot do that, so we can say that if you voluntarily do certain things, X, Y, Z, then we can give you bonus densities. But no, it is standard practice, across the nation that cities do this, and they do it in a way to gain critical infrastructure, facilities, land, or certain types of housing that are needed within that community.
Thank you. The Mayor, if I may, some more here. There were several areas of concern. The accessory dwelling units were of concern to me, and I've dialogued with Morgan and with Robin and Joe. I don't think we have, but there are always going to be complications and complexities in any code, and I'm satisfied that the work you've done for us is good leadership for us as we look to your expertise. I was thinking of Haley, when roundabouts were first being proposed in our area, people were adamantly against them, and the engineers assured us that these were efficient and they were safer, and they increased traffic flow, and even though a lot of people didn't like them, they listened to the experts and said, we're going to do them anyway. And now we've grown to understand them better because we've learned what they really do for us. And I'm satisfied that we're not increasing our density by allowing for these bonus densities. As has already been stated, we're not asking for higher density, we're asking for higher standards. And it's harder to get to that equal density that we had before without making those right accommodations so that we're raising the bar. We're not allowing certain things to just go in uncontested. And so it really gives this body a higher opportunity to govern what is coming into our city. And so for those reasons, I too want to appreciate all of you for your hard work, for your hours. We have heard from the public. We have had numerous public hearings, open houses, different dialogues and discussions. We've met all the requirements legally to do this, and so I'm satisfied with the process and appreciate the work you've put into this.
Councilor Doty?
Thank you. I just want it to be said, I think somebody wanted some comments from us up here. I was the voluntold or volunteered for the committee for over a year that we worked on this project. Many people from your community were involved on that board of all shapes, sizes, walks of life to give input on this project, as well as I have never seen any changes that we've made that did solicit more community input. You can't force people to communicate with you. I mean, we even had an artist drawing pictures of what people envisioned, to walking around the plaza, to emails, to submitting all sorts of public information out there that anyone and everyone could have commented on how they wanted this to turn out. In regards to a new comp plan after just a couple of years, at the time of the council then, the reason it was decided to go with this new comp plan was because of all the variances. You could look at a map and it didn't even correlate with what the current comp plan was. So we decided as a council to move forward with a new one, much under what Councilor Williams just said, that there will be less variances and more commonality as to what takes place within the comp plan. And in regards to bonus density, I think sometimes we get stuck on those words. I also agree that with our standards of what those will look like, we'll support that. I agree that if you put houses in the city and doing the infill, then you stay off the farmland, and that you should use, if you're going to use some of the comments from some other people in our community that people hold more valuable than others, and that's just how I'll leave that, that certainly using the streets, the water, and the sewer that's already in place to continue to build your infill is where you should go, and not out into the farmland with sprawl. Thank you.
Councilor Denberg?
Mr. Mayor, I'll sponsor bill numbers 9 through 21 and ordinances 3661 through 3667 pertaining to the said amendments, and move for their passage by approval and the summaries for publication.
Okay, so that is a motion for approval of the bills and ordinances as listed in new business number 4. Is that correct? All of the ones that are in that order? So is there, and that includes the bonus density, correct, on that? So is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, so we do have a motion by Councilor Denberg and a second by Councilor Doty. So before we do vote, I know that I usually don't get a vote, but I do have a couple comments that I want to put out there. We'll see if there's any other discussion on that motion as well. So I do appreciate staff's time as well. I know it's been over a year in the making. I appreciate it. It does need to happen. We need to update this. I know we've been talking about this for years, even when I was in the planning department on that. So I appreciate everything putting together. I do have concerns on some items. I just wanted to bring those up. And just, again, so we can get it on the record and then move forward with that vote. So I kind of listed these as we went. So there's about 5 or 6 that I have listed here. I just wanted to bring up. First is duplex. And I think that this is just to make sure we're on the same page. So when you were talking about the duplexes, you said that they had to comply with the multifamily code. I'm guessing that is the zoning code that you created, not building code. Would that be correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So the reason I asked that, because multifamily building code means you're now having to put in fire sprinklers and, you know, ADA and things like that, and so I just wanted to clarify. That's what I figured as you went on, I'm like, okay, I think it's just the zoning code, not the building code, because that would have given me great concern if it was building code on that, because that's why nobody builds triplexes, because it doesn't make sense, so they build fourplexes.
Right.
The next one is, I did have some concerns about the front yard setback reduced to 20 feet, or increased to 25 from the 20. The reason for that is, with your setback, it's usually from property line, not from back of sidewalk, and I'm guessing it is from property line. And usually you have a couple of feet from your back of sidewalk to your property line, and so your 20-foot setback really is usually, not always, but it can be 22 to 24 feet depending on how wide the right-of-way is there. So going to 25, it's really, you know, at least usually 27, if not more on that. So I did have a concern on that one. The R3, that is again high-density residential zone, side yard to 3 feet. I don't have an issue going to 3 feet. And I believe it's probably 5 feet is standard, so I'm guessing that's what it is, because that is 6 feet total from house to house. This one, I did have some pretty serious concerns, is the storage units only allowed in industrial zone. So if I'm not mistaken, that means in the commercial, outright not allowed, not an SUP. Is that correct on that one?
That's correct.
So the reason I do, and this kind of, I know is brought up with the RV, I was looking at more at storage units than RV, is that we do want to ensure, and I get it, that we want to be cautious of what's in our commercial zones and things of that nature, but we also want to be cautious that we're not pushing things so far away from residential that now you're adding all these extra miles on the road that maybe weren't necessary. Like, for example, with storage units, and I agree, we have a lot of storage units in Caldwell in that regards, but pushing all of them to industrial zones, you usually don't want your industrial too close to residential, which means now if you're in a home and you have too much junk, right, which I think we all do, and your garage is filled up, now you have to drive to an industrial zone to get to your items. So, and I know there was RV that was brought up on that. I was focusing more on the storage units. And I don't think they should be outright allowed for sure in the commercial, but I think just the option of an SUP to look and see, is it appropriate or not? You could, you know, do that for RVs as well, complain or have a statement for that. So that did give me concern on that one. Industrial land uses industrial land uses have to be enclosed in buildings located within 500 feet of residential. So when I first heard that, I don't know if Steve Jenkins had a chance to look at that or discuss any of these, is where I live, there's residential and industrial really close to each other. And I realize we typically want to have some separation. You don't want a residential zone abutting an industrial zone, but it happens occasionally. And 500 feet is a pretty good distance. And I know that there's a lot of, so I'm just thinking of on I think it's KCID Road, that there is a lot of outside storage of industrial uses. So if this code, I know they'd be grandfathered, but if that were the case, they would have to build a building to put a lot of those materials inside. I know like Amfec is one that does some storage outside that's close to residential. So that does give me concern, is does it have to be a building? Could it just say within or behind a side of a screen fence rather than having to be in an enclosed building? So that one, I wondered about the fallout on that if that were approved in that regards. And then I'll go with just one last one. The vacant lots in downtown landscaped within 180 days. And I totally agree that yes, it reduces blight, gets rid of those things. It would be nice to get that done. But if that is, and that's, a lot of these things are triggered by development. That one I don't think is. It's basically just if your lot's vacant, you got to get it landscaped. I agree that we need to have them maintained, and we don't want weed infested properties in the downtown area, but I guess how far out does that go all the way up to the freeway? Is it the city center district? Is it the business district? It just gives me some concerns of forcing people to landscape within 180 days, and then maintaining a landscape property is sometimes more difficult than just keeping the weeds down, and so are we putting too much of a burden on existing property owners in that regard? So again, all the respect in the world. I've been in that seat before many times, so that may surprise people that I do have some concerns in regards to these. So all the respect in the world for what you do and how you do it, but those are just kind of some of the concerns that came up as we were going through the discussions tonight. So again, I realize that I usually don't get a vote, but I just want to make sure that I did kind of put those out there. So with that, if there's any other debate or questions, Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make a comment that I'm not sure about this bonus plan either, but I would have rather invited the Plan and Zoning Commission to come over and have a little workshop just to see, you know, what their opinions are on some of these things before we move ahead. Motion's before the floor. We'll see where it happens. Thank you.
Councilor Doty.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to comment on your comments that some of those items did come up during the last year, and of course, with the public feedback and where we're at, that's how the decisions were made. So people did not want just one, so I don't go through your whole list. Did not want any more storage units in town, so that's the compromise. So.
Okay, Councilor, Denver, did you have any other comments, or? Okay, very good. So again, the motion is before the council for approval, and this is for all the bills and ordinances, including the bonus density, as was mentioned on that. And again, just for the record, the motion was from Councilor Dittenber, and the second was Councilor Doty. Okay, very good. So with that, voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed. And that motion does pass with 4 in favor and 2 in opposition. So if there's anyone listening that cannot see, just for clarification, those councilors voting in opposition was Councilor Stoddard and Councilor Register, with the remainder voting in favor. So with that, it does approve the zoning ordinance amendment. And again, this is, as mentioned, over a year in the making, coming to a culmination, so appreciate staff's time, and as was mentioned before, that I believe there was some great public outreach that took place. Obviously, not everybody's going to get what they want at the end of the day. We realize that, but again, that doesn't fall on deaf ears of the great work and effort of staff and council and the community, and voicing their concerns and what they wanted to see change. So respect that completely. That then moves us into, because that would have been item number 4, so that moves us into item number 5. So again, thank you to everyone that came out and expressed your support and concerns, and appreciate the time that you took to be here this evening. So thank you so much. And now on to the fire department, and they're still here. So we had to just make sure you guys really were wanting this, so we put you afterwards just to keep you around for a while. So again, this is approved resolution approving the award of bid for the design and construction of fire stations 1 and 4 to Core Construction and Pivot North Architecture under a guaranteed maximum price framework, and authorize the commencement of the contract negotiations. This is exciting to get finally to this point. So now this one's been a few years in the making. So anyway, with that, Haley, turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members, and I apologize. You have me, not the fire department, to present this one. They talked me into it. So as you stated, we released an RFQ so that we could receive qualifications for the fire department to proceed with a progressive design build. This will allow us for the contractor and the designer to be on board and as a team, so that we get the contractor's opinions and thoughts throughout the design process. It'll lead to a more efficient and cost-effective product. This is for Fire Station 1 and for Fire Station 4. We received 8 submittals, and we interviewed 3 teams. Ultimately, we selected Core Construction and Pivot North Architecture. We asked council to allow us to go into contract negotiation with this team, and we will have a set budget of $20 million that we will not exceed. Thank you.
Very good, excellent. Any questions, Councilor Dittenber?
Haley, I had a question for you. So with regard to this contract, does the city do design build type arrangements, or is this all, I mean, we know exactly what we're getting when we do this, or are there some variations and flexibility in how the end product looks?
Yeah, so thank you for that clarification, Council Dittenber. The design build does allow for some flexibility from where we're starting right now. So right now, for Fire Station 1, we have two options for which we can proceed. We can either proceed with a fully new fire station and admin building at the old City Hall site, or we can utilize the existing City Hall for an admin building and then add on addition for additional fire space. So we have some flexibility with this contract, and that's why we set it up as a design build so that we can work with the team and they can help us determine which is the best avenue to move forward in.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Doty.
And just on that, Councilor Dittenber, I think during our interview process, and maybe Councilor Static can help me with that, but the decision was that they would use the current admin building in order to keep within costs. And so that was my understanding at the time. So also in regards to that, I think as we get into this, Corps has a pretty neat interior plan. I don't know if that'll be the one selected for the inside with, I don't really know how to describe those boards and things, so, and I'm not gonna try. So I'll turn it over to Councilor Stoddard. Maybe he'll give it a try. I'm not sure.
Councilor Stoddard.
I just want to make a comment. I think the fire department ought to give this young lady a month's worth of babysitting, so they have a little relief from their new one. So anyway, thanks.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So with that,
Mr. Mayor?
yes,
Make a motion to approve the award of bid for the design and construction of Fire Station Number 1 and Fire Station Number 4 to Core Construction for Pivot North Architecture under a guaranteed maximum price framework and authorize the commencement of the contract negotiations.
very good. So we have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval of the resolution as described. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, then voting is open at this time. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. So before we do go on to item number 6, congratulations to Core Construction. And the great thing that you can know about is the 3 finalists were all incredible companies. And so it's not like you had one up here and down there. So I'm sure it was a very competitive process. You know, Core and the others, I think it was ESI and HC, is that correct, on the 3? But just great people and all of them. I'm so excited to work with them, and that's one of the great things about the valley we live in, our community, is we have not only great businesses and great construction companies, but it's great people that lead them, and that's what makes, I think, the Treasure Valley and Caldwell so special. So I'm super excited to have that, and it's going to be moving forward with that. So get out there and get to work. So excited to get that going.
Mr. Mayor, which
Yes.
one of these individuals, these fine men, are gonna come and tell us the project is under budget?
Right there. So he raised his hand even. So very good. Excellent. Okay. Okay. So now we're on to, and thank you so much to we got our 3 deputy chiefs in the back. Appreciate them and all their work and what they do for the city. And it's exciting times. So we're excited to be moving forward with this. So thank you so much for all your work and effort on this. Item number 6. So this is Bill 39. Oh, that was removed. At staff's request, and that moves us right into the finance report, so we're almost done, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
Councilor Stoddard, will we take this as you handled mine last week?
Councilor Allgood, still have an adult beverage I'm waiting for the last time.
I'll go ahead. I move that accounts payable amount of $2,683,469.32, represented by check numbers 185028 to 185295, and allowed for electronic payments and payroll in the amount of $802,949.69, represented by check numbers 39881 39899, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Very good, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion from Councilor Allgood, second from Councilor Stoddard for approval of the finance report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes.
And just for reference, that is page number 1945
You can blame those people right over there for that one. So I think that's got to set a record. I would hope that sets a record. So, okay, and one we don't want to break anytime soon. So, okay, on to council comments. Councilor Doty.
I think I'm good for tonight. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Stoddard.
I have nothing.
Councilor Register. Councilor Williams.
Just one comment from my Parks and Rec Commission meeting, and I failed to mention this to you earlier, but good news is we're on schedule with the swimming pool.
Yes, we are very excited for that. We will have a announcement out to all of you shortly for not only a ribbon cutting, we're going to do a party. We're going to do a big party for the community. They've waited so long for that to reopen, so we're excited for that. We'll have that coming out to all of you very soon.
Jump in?
So, wear your suits.
You should
I
jump
will.
in
I
first.
will. Yes, I'm planning on it. So, Councilor Allgood. Okay, and Councilor Denver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did you skip, did you have your chance? Okay. So a couple things, I drive by the swimming pool every day. I notice there's even water in it. So, that is great. We'll hopefully have some warm weather and, get it nice and swimmable here in a couple days. But I also wanted to say what great things that are going on in the city. Councilor Doty and Councilor Allgood and myself had an opportunity to visit the wastewater treatment plant the other day, and they were sampling a new piece of equipment that brings a lot of possibility to cost savings in the way we treat sewage in the city of Caldwell. And it's just always nice to see that as we're growing up on the outside, we're also growing up on the inside, and that our staff's ability and their expertise is growing, and I appreciate all of them.
Very good. Thank you so much. So I'll just kind of reiterate just the thanks to staff and to everyone, the council, the public, over the last several years of getting through those amendments. You know, I appreciate it on that, and yeah, it's just a lot of work on that, and you're never going to get everybody to agree on any, especially that amount of items, so we understand that and just appreciate, again, the work and effort in that regards. And like I tell, when I was a planner, I would always say a zoning ordinance is a living, breathing document. This doesn't finalize it forever, and there will be amendments that will still come forward, and that's normal in that regards. And so it's at a great place right now. Appreciate all the effort on that, but again, it's living, breathing, so as things change and come up, I'm sure we'll have some of those come back before us and for consideration in those regards at those times. So, yeah, just appreciate everyone that's here. Thank you for being with us this evening, and with that, we stand adjourned.